Laminate countertops, cabinets, and flooring.
Cardinals bullpen as that one is high in the air to left. Bader back to the wall. It's gone. Chip, you want to talk about great sign. How about turning around 98 up and in and driving it out of the ballpark for Nolan Arenado? Right center. Victor on the run. Look at him go. Still going again. Makes the grab. He saved a run and maybe more. Hey, got it. Cardinals win on opening day. 5-3 your final score. What a way, Brad, to kick off a new season.
That's what it sounded like yesterday on FanDuel Sports Midwest. Alongside Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. We are broadcasting live from the E&B Granite Studios out at the Centene Community Ice Center, and that is what a quality baseball game looks like, ladies and gentlemen. Cardinals win 5-3 yesterday against the Minnesota Twins on opening day, and basically everybody had success. Alex was right. Nolan Arenado hit a home run. T-Bone was right. Lars Nootbaar hit a home run.
BK was right.
I was wrong. The one guy in the top 6 of your lineup that did not record a hit yesterday was Wilson Contreras.
BKO.
Baseball
BKO.
is back.
BKO.
Baseball is back. The Cardinals are back. I mean, guys, let's just start here. That was a fun baseball game to watch. Like, even if you were a neutral observer yesterday and you didn't pick a side of one of these two teams, you would have enjoyed the hell out of that baseball game. It was pretty well played by both sides. Harrison Bader had his big moment. You had Nolan Arenado, just poetic. Baseball is the only sport that can have something like that happen with the opening day ovation, his entire offseason being what it was. He ends up not only having a big moment for himself pregame where he gets the ovation, but then has the standing O after his home run where he ends up cupping his ear, doing a little WWE wrestling style situation there. It was beautiful. So that was a hell of a lot of fun. Alex, your biggest takeaway from the opening day win for the Cardinals was what?
It was just their ability to hit and come through in big moments. It's what has plagued this team for the longest time, and you're right. It was an entertaining game. You saw big defensive plays. You saw really good base path decisions, and you saw clutch. And frankly, clutch has been this biggest bugaboo for the Cardinals for the longest time. So watching Lars Nootbaar come through with a big hit, watching Nolan Arenado hit that home run, even seeing guys like Brendan Donovan in the 3-hole, who you did predict would be a good 3-hole hitter for this team. It was the perfect recipe for what you'd expect this Cardinals team to look like if they were going to have success. You mentioned it in our show meeting. It's pack mentality. That's exactly what that win was. And frankly, if you're a St. Louis sports fan, pack mentality is how you embrace this fan base.
It is, and they also had a style of play that was on display yesterday. Jordan back in the studio for us. We got a couple of quotes here, one from Ollie Marmol, the other from Sonny Gray on the style that we saw on display yesterday. T-Bone, I want to get your thoughts on this. Let's start with Ollie Marmol on what Cardinals baseball should look like in 2025.
I mean, you can talk about all these different words of being electric and bringing energy and relentless, and then actually doing it. And they did exactly that. I mean, they're running all over the field, making plays, stealing bases, or at-bats. Like, that is what a relentless at-bat looks like, 1 through 9. All the way from the beginning of the game down to, I mean, ton of foul balls. I mean, made it really tough on every one of their pitchers, drove pitch counts up. Like, when you have that mentality 1 through 9, that's putting that word into action. And I felt like our at-bats and our style of play was exactly that.
All right, that's Ollie Marmol. Now let's hear from the starting pitcher yesterday who pitched a pretty damn good game given the circumstances. Here's Sonny Gray.
If you look at like who are the Cardinals and who are the St. Louis Cardinals, I feel like that game is kind of can embody who we are and who we want to be. So yeah, I mean, there's going to be room for improvement on a personal level for sure. So yeah, I mean, but it was all in all. I mean, it was a fun day at the field.
Who are the Cardinals? What can the Cardinals be? That is the game that they're going to point to. We got a few texts. 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line from the 314. Guys, not really sure about the smart on the base path thing since they had two guys trying to steal second while the pitcher was still at a pause. Another one, good base path decisions. They got picked off twice but got away with it. No, they forced the opposition into difficult spots. And that is what aggressive baseball should look like. It's going to result at times with that not going in their direction. But yesterday it was exactly what it should look like when it goes your way. You're going to get some of those bounces. Yesterday, you got a couple of them. Brendan Donovan, great play at second base. If that is another inch to his right, that ends up being a potential extra base hit. The catch by Victor Scott in center field went your way. He was able to track that one down. There's going to be others that look the exact same way that he's not going to be able to catch. But because you had the athleticism in center field, because you played the aggressive style, you got guys under runners in scoring position situations, that's what this team needs to look like. T-Bone, what did you take away from their style of play yesterday?
Yeah, I like the style of baseball that they played yesterday. Now, I agree with what the text line is saying. Hey, they got kind of picked off, but hey, mistakes happen, and there are pitchers that can't throw to the bases. Pablo Lopez, clearly one of those guys. But I like the style. Now, the thing that I was questioning if they were going to have was what I'll call actual slugging, which is hitting for doubles, hitting home runs. And yesterday they showed that. If they can balance a little bit of actual slug with manufactured slug, which they did yesterday, which is hey, on that Donovan base hit, we're going to go from first to third. Mm-hmm. Or, hey, we're going to get on base. I think Walker got on that rocket down the third baseline. I'm going to try and steal second base and create a single into a double. If they can kind of balance that out like they did yesterday, which was, hey, 3 really big hits for the Cardinals, generating actual power off of their bat, along with, hey, let's play this aggressive style of baseball on the base pass, manufacture slug. This would be a recipe for success for the 2025 Cardinals. Now, we'll see if it continues, but I like that style of play they did yesterday because, like you said, if you were a neutral observer of that baseball game, that was fun last night. That was a fun baseball game, and that was because of the way that the St. Louis Cardinals were playing.
And I guess I should clarify, I didn't mean the base path where they were getting picked off. What I meant was the first to third, scoring from second base, manufacturing doubles, as T-Bone was talking about.
But it can be all of that. It's all of it. It is the aggressiveness on the base path. That's part of the style, and that means you have to like it, whether they end up getting picked off or not. Like, there is no, you got to play the results here. No, you either like this style of play or you don't, and you got to make that decision before you see what the results are.
Yeah, I frankly, I want an aggressive team this year. I don't want a team that's expecting it to come to them because the NL Central is easy, as everybody is saying. I want them to make it easy. And what I mean by that is that team going out there and playing aggressive at every at-bat, playing aggressive on the base paths, even if you do get picked off or even if you do make mistakes, because this is a young team. I know with Arenado and Contreras, they've got the veterans. It's a young team that I want to take these chances so that you can build the confidence as the season goes along.
Can I say one other thing? And we're reading too much into this one day. I'm not telling you that this team's going to go 162.
Oh, really? Because I saw like 17 people say that.
I we're on pace for that.
For sure.
Damn it, Tanner.
I'm not telling you that this team's going to be great. Nobody should be selling you that today based on one game that looked good. Tomorrow they could lose 5-3. The next day they could lose 10-1, and we're coming on the air on Monday saying, yes, same old Cardinals. But what I would say is yesterday, body language-wise, it did look pretty different. I mean, Nolan Arenado looked like he had a little bit of swagger to him. The birds flying celebration.
You got to come up with a better selly.
I like it.
No, you got to come up with a better selly.
Yeah, listen, man, as long as it's organic and it's something that they come up with and it
T-Rex.
plays for them, I'm all with it, man. This is the kind of stuff that gets you through 162, and it is potentially a small thing. But Nolan Arenado specifically had some swagger to him yesterday. First of all, the results looked better. He is swinging a faster bat, which is super important. We saw at the end of Matt Carpenter's career here in St. Louis, that was the thing that did it in for him. He just didn't have the same bat speed, and he couldn't catch up to the velocity anymore, especially at the top of the zone. It felt like that might be what was coming for Nolan Arenado. Last year, you had a little piece of hope, a little sliver of hope, I think, post-trade deadline. It was like, oh, okay, Arenado found his bat speed, and then it started to dissipate again. But yesterday, you saw that back, and that's a real tangible change that started to show itself in spring, and now you saw it in one game, small sample size, in the first game of the season. I also thought the ovation pregame was really meaningful to him, and he talked about that after the game yesterday. Here is what Nolan Arenado had to say to reporters.
Feels good, the fans, greeted me. It meant a lot to me today. I took it all in, and I usually don't, but today I did, and the way they cheered for me, it meant a lot to me, and got me motivated, and I was just fortunate to give them something to cheer about again also. So, I just want to thank them for that. It meant a lot to me and my family. It was a really cool day.
Arenado was embraced from the first game that he played here in St. Louis. He had that home run on opening day, and it was like, okay, this is going to be amazing. Everybody's going to love every second of the Nolan Arenado experience here in St. Louis. And then they lose in the playoffs, and basically since then, the fan base has turned on Nolan Arenado, at least a portion of it to some degree. This is a place in St. Louis, at least based on my own experiences, and that's all I can tell you, Alex. I'm not a former athlete, but my experience is both talking to former athletes in the city and then being an outsider myself. You almost have to earn it with this fan base, right? You've got to earn your trust, your love, your appreciation. And I think Arenado had it at the beginning, and then it left him. And now I think he's earning it back again, or has the ability to earn it back this year of being one of ours, right? Being a St. Louis guy. Harrison Bader yesterday, did you see the ovation for him pregame?
I thought
that
we didn't
doesn't
like
surprise
him as a
me.
fan base. Maybe
No.
I didn't get the message.
They don't like him as a fan base when he's here and he's not performing.
Okay.
I think the stuff that Bader says publicly about how much he loves this city, it plays, man. St. Louis sees that stuff, and they appreciate it. When you appreciate this city and you don't talk about it as if it's less than or smaller than or not good enough, fans appreciate that, and they will adopt you as one of their own. Harrison Bader almost feels like he's from St. Louis when he comes back here. And I think that moment yesterday was really important for the fan base. It was really important for Nolan Arenado, and I don't want to make too much of it. I probably am, but I thought that was a big, big day for Nolan Arenado and what this year could be for him for the Cardinals.
Embrace the city, and the city will embrace you back. That's the one thing that the St. Louis fans always do, and you hear everybody talk about it, whether they played 1 year or 15 years. I agree. Nolan Arenado, I felt like had the ability to be a comeback player this season. It was just going to be, is he aging or was it just a really bad year? And I think there's a little bit of both from last season. But you know what? You get a little bit of an adrenaline bump when you have a fan base that's behind you like that. The standing ovation, on top of it being opening day, on top of everything that took place in the offseason, and even in Mo's availability yesterday when he was talking, he still referenced how they were trying to trade their third baseman. So there was just a lot of dark clouds over Nolan Arenado, and I think the sun came out as soon as he got that embrace, and it just felt like it got better as the day went along. When he got that curtain call and he was just standing up there and he was celebrating with the fans, there was a part of me, an optimistic part of me, which doesn't come out very often, T-Bone. It was kind of like the sun yesterday. It could be Keizo very often. But there was a part of me that was like, yeah, I could see Nolan Arenado going back to being what he was when he was first acquired by the Cardinals. I can see him being a middle-of-the-order impact bat with Gold Glove defense and really being the catalyst for this team to have success this year.
Yesterday was a day for hope. That's what opening day is all about.
Yep.
You begin the season 0-0. Everybody's the same record except for the Cubs, who are 0-2 after starting.
You guys
against the
suck,
Dodgers.
Chicago.
You
But
sang the song yesterday.
everybody has hope on opening day, and yesterday did nothing to dissuade that hope from Cardinals
and then
fans.
the next day you get kicked in the nards.
Well, not today. It's a
We're off,
victory
baby.
Friday.
Yeah.
2-0.
But Saturday, we'll see. We'll see what comes Saturday. We'll see what comes Sunday. And maybe we get back in on Monday, and all of this has changed. And suddenly Nolan Arenado looks terrible, and the Cardinals are getting thrown out all over the base pass, and the pitching looks shoddy. All of that is very possible. But for one game, looked pretty damn good, and it felt pretty damn good.
Yeah, I think two things for me with Arenado. One, I think the fan base embracing him even throughout all of the trade rumors and not getting the Torrey Krug treatment for saying no to a trade really helped him play into the, hey, okay, the city's embracing me, I'm going to embrace this. I also think this, and this isn't anything to do with what the fan base does. It is what the Cardinals' actions and words have been. I think he's playing looser, and I think he's accepting the fact of where the Cardinals are.
I think that might be a good thing for this team.
think that's a great thing for this team.
And I think, and maybe I'm off here, I also think it's great because I don't think he's the one under pressure this season.
No.
Because when we talk about the Cardinals, we're not talking about, if Arenado bounces back, then the Cardinals, if Arenado doesn't bounce back, then this is what happens to the Cardinals. We're always going, if Walker doesn't hit, if Gorman doesn't hit, if Victor Scott doesn't hit, if Nootbaar doesn't stay healthy,
the only pressure for him is his own. Because if he wants to go elsewhere, he has to have a good season for another team to value him, right? That's where the pressure comes in. But it's not external pressures anymore, and it was previously. It was always Goalie and Arenado have to carry this team. We'll see what everybody else gives them. And now it's almost the opposite. We're looking to everybody else, and Arenado, can you be what you were? I don't know. We'll see. But it's not a pressure necessarily that's placed upon him. With Alex and T-Bone on BK, it's BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. Coming up at 11:30, we're going to talk to our guy, Brad Thompson. He was a part of the call yesterday on FanDuel Sports Midwest. He's going to join us each and every Friday throughout the Cardinals season. BT joining us at 11:30. Coming up next, so we got to talk about the Blues twofold. One, nice to see them have a little punch back last night in their game. Two, sounds like Jimmy Snuggerud might be here quicker than expected. We'll talk about that next year on 101 ESPN.
Broadcasting live from the Centene Community Ice Center inside the E&B Granite Studios. This is BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN. E&B Granite, Bernie Fedurko's only choice for granite countertops, cabinets, and flooring.
Alex and T1 on BK. It's BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. You could make an argument that that was one of the worst games that the Blues have played during this stretch of wins, and they still found a way to win. With Alex and T1 on BK, I like seeing a team that has real opportunities to go into the postseason and be a threat. I want to see them.
You like good
against
teams.
The rails. I want to see them pushed.
Yes.
I want to see what it looks like when they have their backs against the wall, when they're down and it feels as though they're out.
Like a caged lion.
It felt that way last night for the Blues. They did not look good for the first two periods, dude. They could not figure out how to get through the neutral zone. Mm-hmm. They got no sustained offensive zone time. It felt like they were Montreal from the other night, where it's like, dude, you're getting suffocated, and neither of these teams are playing super well, but it's just ugly hockey to watch. And they figured it out. It took them some time, but by the third period, they had it figured out. That is so encouraging to me as a fan that wants to see this team make some noise in the playoffs, because it's easy to play when you're ahead the whole time. That's the best way to play, dude. Front runners. I remember the 2015 Carolina Panthers. All year long, it was like, okay, this team is amazing. But they were never behind. They were always playing from in front, and so they just became this front-running team, and by the time they got punched in the mouth, it took them up until the Super Bowl. They had no response. Zero ability to respond to that kind of adversity. That was, for me, Alex, enjoyable to watch last night in a strange way, because I wanted to see them put into that situation and how they would respond, and they were great in their response in that third period.
They were. I mean, that was a game, and look, I personally don't think the Blues played poorly in that game. I think Nashville did a very good job of eliminating the Blues' ability to cycle the puck. And frankly, it would make sense. When a team sees you 3 times in 9 days, you're going to adjust. Frankly, it's a little surprising they didn't adjust sooner. But that was a game. The Blues had won twice this season in 28 opportunities when they were trailing after 2 periods. And if I'm not mistaken, the only 2 times that happened was the first 2 games of the year when they beat Seattle and San Jose. They were trailing and they came back. So you have not come from behind in the second or after the second period since the beginning of the season. And you just kind of laid idle and waited for your opening. And that's what happened. Montgomery said at postgame last night, we told the team they needed to win the second period. What'd they do? Beat them 1-0. You got back in it. You didn't give up another goal like you had done to Pittsburgh multiple times. And then the third period, you just waited. You waited for Nashville to stop playing. And they did. And what happened? Fowler finds his opening. He takes the shot, he scores, and then 22 seconds later, Holloway and that line pounce. But for me, on top of handling adversity in a different way, BK, I also thought that was a coaching clinic last night by Jim Montgomery. It resembled a lot of what Craig Berube used to do, to where he realizes the opposition is doing certain matchups, and he says, we need to exploit that mismatch. He saw that the top 2 lines weren't working, and he said, let's switch it up again. He knows Thomas Holloway and Kyrou are working well together. Late in that game, the Nashville Predators weren't putting top line versus fourth line, which is typically what teams do on home games. They'll put their top line against the other team's fourth line because it's a mismatch. Montgomery recognized that and said, no, they're going fourth line, so let's go top line, because we have the ability to outplay them. And they did in that third period. And then on top of it, he realized that they didn't have their best stuff, and he said, we're going to go to a strictly defensive side once we take the lead. And Texier didn't see a shift after Holloway scored. Joseph didn't see a shift after Holloway scored. Kyrou and Tucker both played 1 shift following Holloway's goal. And then he said, we're going strictly defense, and it worked for him.
I mean, look at the time on ice last night. Normally, the Blues during this winning streak, they have been very balanced.
Very
you
even.
See guys that, like, everybody is around 15, 16 minutes. Everybody. Last night, 9:42 for Matthew Joseph, 9:05 for Alexander Texier, 13 minutes for Toropchenko, 12 minutes for Oscar Sundqvist. And then you look at the top line, Dylan Holloway, 20 minutes last night on the ice. Same thing for Robert Thomas. You look at the defensive core, and they even got those top 3 guys really working last night, where it was 20-plus, 23-plus, and 24 minutes on the ice for Justin Falk last night. They had to work to be able to get that game, and I wanted to see them have to be in that situation where they really got pushed by somebody. I don't care who the opposition is. I want to see you get pushed to find out, do you have that response? What does that look like when you end up having some of that adversity? They saw it to a degree when they had that back-to-back over the weekend. They did not play well against Chicago or Nashville, but those teams weren't good enough to take advantage of it. This was different because it was in-game, where you have to respond and you have to change the style of play that you have. I loved seeing it, and it sets you up well to potentially continue this with a road game tomorrow night at Colorado. One of the questions that everybody's asking right now is who's going to be on the ice for that game, Alex. Dvorsky could maybe be reinserted into the lineup, especially after what you mentioned with both Texier and Joseph really not playing in the final 10 minutes of that one last night. The other thing is, what happens with Jimmy Snuggerud?
No, he's in the tournament, man.
If you didn't see last night, Minnesota got screwed.
Yes, they did.
Not once, but multiple times in this one. First, there was an equipment issue with their goalie, and he was immediately forced out of the game. They didn't give him any time to fix it, so they had to go to their backup goalie for a little bit, and they end up scoring on the backup goalie multiple times. So that's already one thing that screwed them. And then in overtime, one of their players clearly got tripped. It was a clear and obvious trip to everybody that was watching, and they didn't call it. Puck's loose, ends up going the other way. I think it was like a 3-on-2 going the other direction. They end up scoring. UMass does, and boom, game over. It's sudden death OT. Minnesota's going home. Jimmy Snuggerud is now available, and now the question is he going to sign? So, Alex, there's this I'll call it a report from Andy Strickland, who tweeted out, Jimmy Snuggerud is likely to sign and join the Blues in the coming days. Getting to Colorado for tomorrow's game will be tight. Expect him to join the team for the upcoming homestand next week. Now, when a report is phrased this way, it always makes me wonder, like, okay, is this 100% done, or is it this is probable, but things can happen? Because he said, it's likely that he will sign and join the Blues. Well, I agree with that. I can exclusively report, without doing any reporting, that it is likely that Jimmy Snuggerud will be joining the Blues.
Well, tweet it
but
then.
That's not done until it is officially done, as we saw a year ago when I thought it was likely that Jimmy Snuggerud would be joining the Blues. Alex, what do you make of it? His season coming to an end earlier than anybody, including him, expected. And if he does end up signing with the Blues, how does he fit into this?
Yeah, so from what I know, Doug Armstrong and Alex Steen were in attendance for that game last night. So that tells you right there, one, that they're just supporting their prospect. But two, if the elimination does take place, the conversations can begin of, hey, here's the contract. Now, you're not going to jump right in the moment he's sitting in his locker room and he's upset with a contract saying, sign on the dotted lines. JR reported in his piece that, Snuggerud kind of took a couple of extra laps around the rink last night, which I'll read between the lines saying, I think he understands that this might be it. And it makes sense for Snuggerud. You went back because you thought you had a shot at a national championship. They played well, but they played poorly down the stretch. And it's a younger team. It's got a lot of guys that are graduating. I think there's 5 players on that team that have the ability to sign a contract with an NHL team. So to me, the writing's on the wall. I think Snuggerud is going to sign with the Blues. I don't expect him to play tomorrow. If the contract gets announced today that he signed it, maybe he joins the team. He's not playing tomorrow against Colorado. Jim Montgomery is going to at least want to see him, and it might work in his favor because they don't play again until Tuesday. If he signs, you get with the team on Friday or on Saturday, you're around them, you travel back with them, and then they'll have the day off on Sunday, and then you do a practice on Monday. My guess, if they get him into the lineup, and I'm going to stick to the words that I've said all along, I think he plays the moment he signs. I think he probably signs sometime today or tomorrow, and he joins the Blues and plays on Tuesday.
If I'm being honest, I think this was best case scenario for the Blues. And I feel bad about that because, on a personal level, this sucks for Snuggerud, man. He went back for a reason, and he wasn't able to accomplish that goal. He did, however, have a much better season this year than he did a year ago.
Last night.
He was awesome last night for them. He was absolutely not the reason that team lost. He was one of the only reasons they were in the game. He was the one that scored the game-tying goal to send this thing to overtime last night. So it sucks for him, and I feel for him because this was a family thing. But if we're just selfishly looking at it through the Blues perspective, man, it's great that they could get this much runway for him going into the playoffs. And it's also great that they've been playing so well. They've got a little bit of room. They've got some wiggle room. They've allowed that for themselves to where, hey, you can implement Jimmy Snuggerud into this lineup, and even if it doesn't go great, which is possible right away, you can work through some stuff early on, and it gives you the time to find out, is this guy ready for playoff hockey, which at this point feels likely for the Blues. Can he be somebody that is in our lineup night to night in the postseason this quickly after finishing up a college career?
Yeah, that shot to me plays, and you saw it last night. I think it's going to be how does he handle the other side of the game, which Jim Montgomery's going to get a good litmus test on. But the moment he plays one game, you burn that first year of the entry level because he's 20 years old when he signs his contract. So to me, I agree. This is the best case scenario because you might be able to get 15 games if it's playoffs and regular season combined before he gets the first full season, and that first year of burning it actually is worth something.
He's Alex. That's T-Bone on BK. 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line to get involved in the show. We'll get to Ask Us Anything in 15 minutes. Brad Thompson joins us next here on 101 ESPN.
101 ESPN Sports Center.
I'm Jordan Deacon. The Sports Center update is driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. It's a busy time in St. Louis sports. The Battlehawks kick off their season tonight against the Houston Roughnecks at 7 o'clock. The Cardinals kicked off home opener yesterday, opening day, where they won against the Twins 5-3. They're off today and back in action tomorrow against the Twins again with first pitch at 1:15. And the Blues won against Nashville last night with a gritty win 3-2. They're also off today and taking on Colorado for a 2:30 pregame and a 3:30 puck drop on Saturday. Also, STL City is playing on Sunday against Austin FC with kickoff at 1:15. I'm Jordan Deacon. This Sports Center update was driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. See them at londoff.com. Chevy, together we drive. Are you kidding me?
This is BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN. We're broadcasting live from the E&B Granite Studios at the Centene Community Ice Center. E&B Granite, Bernie Fedorko's only choice for granite countertops, cabinets, and flooring. We're hanging with Brad Thompson on 101 ESPN.
Hanging breaking ball from Brad Thompson. And boy, does he get a swing on it. Lift and separate and see you later.
Hanging with BT is sponsored by St. Luke's, ranked top 2% in the nation for cardiac surgery by Health Grades. Visit stlukes-stl.com.
Alongside Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. It's BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN, and we are happy to go out to the Callier and Thompson hotline to be joined by our friend, Cardinals analyst for FanDuel Sports Midwest, and new weekly contributor here on BK and Ferrario. He's the one and only Brad Thompson joining us here on the show. BT, what's good, man?
Gentlemen, opening day was good. It took a little bit longer than we expected with the rain delay, but that was fantastic. By the way, this is my second time now, I believe, hearing the open of Hanging with Brad Thompson. And boy, does that scream credibility.
Yeah,
I'll tell you, just a hanging breaking ball. Mike Ryder just outdid himself yet again. First big question, I guess, BT, to you is, were you surprised that Mike Ryder didn't use the home run that you gave up that went off of the face in the outfield?
Yeah,
yes. Yeah, I was. I'm sure that there will be different iterations of this throughout the season. There's always time to adapt and adjust. There's a good chance on a broadcast I might say something stupid enough to make it into an open. So I think that, I'm waiting for the evolution of this.
It's going to be great, and we'll be able to do that over the course of the entire season.
Enjoy it together.
BT going to be joining us each and every Friday here on the show. BT, let's start with the obvious. That was a hell of a baseball game yesterday. It was just a lot of fun to watch. The style of baseball was crisp. Sonny Gray looked good out there. Victor Scott made a huge play in center field. You have Lars Nootbaar, Nolan Arenado with big moments with the bat. For you, as a spectator up in the booth, what to you stood out about the opening day baseball that we were able to watch yesterday?
Look, I think, BK, I think you hit the nail on the head. It was the energy. It was the energy in which they played. Now, if you can't play with energy on opening day, shame on you, okay? Because we all know the pageantry surrounding opening day for the St. Louis Cardinals. But this is what Ollie Marmol and his staff have been talking about with this club. They're young. They're ready to rock and roll. They're motivated. And, look, opening day, anybody can be up for opening day. But I truly believe that this is the style that you're going to see. I love the way that they were swinging the bats, and we all, and still, you're obviously going to have concerns about the Cardinals' offense in this season. You still have a lot of questions to be answered, but I like the approach that they had. And we were talking to Ollie Marmol before the game, and we talked about this on the broadcast, but he was talking about Brant Brown, and he had a couple of really big points that they have hit home to the Cardinals' offense. And one of those from Brant Brown to the offense is there's a time to hit and there's a time to slug. And I think that the Cardinals did a good job of that. You saw an approach, right? When there was a time to hit, put the ball in play, 2 strike, go the other way, use what the defense is giving you. They did that. And then when there was a time to slug, you see a bigger swing trying to do some damage. And the other point that Brant Brown hits on is home runs are thrown, they're not hit. So it's mistakes that are oftentimes home runs. And I think that's a great way to think about it. Instead of thinking damage every single pitch, think about what does this situation call for? Then what do I do? How can I mimic my game for that? And I thought they did a good job of that offensively. But top to bottom, you mentioned it. The defense was solid. Victor Scott out in center field went out and got a couple of balls off the bat of Ty France that were game-changing. Everybody in the infield looked good. I mean, it just was a solid performance. Sonny, as you mentioned, still not dealing with probably his best stuff, but knows how to pitch. He was great. And the bullpen locked it down. It was awesome. BT, I know it's early on in the season, and it is a group of younger players. Do you feel like this group, though, has an identity, or are they still searching for it?
I think that their identity is, and I think that it consistently evolves, but I think that their identity is going to be hustle and hungry. I think that's kind of what it is. I feel like they are going to out-effort everybody. Now, does out-efforting everybody win you every game? No. You're going to have some talent. That talent's going to have to play up. I tried really hard. I'm talking now on the radio as opposed to just playing for a really long time where I never had to get another job. So it's a little bit different, but I think that is going to be a part of this. You're going to see this team run out every ball. You're going to see them not take anything for granted. And if you do see some of those moments, I think that you're going to see it checked. And if you don't see it checked, know that behind the scenes it will be. I feel like they have a strong core of leaders already. You've got your veteran guard, but you got some young guys that are already stepping up. Ollie was telling us before the broadcast yesterday that they had their team meeting, and he kind of just opened it up to them. And he was actually very happy with how many guys felt comfortable to step up and to talk and to lead and not be afraid of that moment. We've all been in rooms before in situations where you're looking around, you're like, yeah, that's probably not me. I'm probably not the guy here. But
not Tommy Pham. Tommy Pham's never been in that room.
Tommy Pham is always the one that's ready.
I don't know what room you could possibly put him in that he wouldn't feel comfortable. That guy is different, right? He's built different. But it was great to hear that about some of these younger Cardinals that are not afraid to have a voice. And to me, it also speaks volumes about the veterans of letting them have that voice.
Brad Thompson's our guest here on 101 ESPN. BT, I did want to ask you about Nolan Arenado. A, had the big moment beforehand where he got the ovation from the fans, and then B, had the ovation after he hit the home run as well, where he got the curtain call, and he said he was surprised by that. He can't remember getting one the entirety of last season. What can that do for Arenado on the mental side of things to get that kind of an ovation on opening day?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. And for Nolan Arenado, we know this. Look at his resume. The guy is on his way to Cooperstown. He's one of the best the game of baseball has seen in the past decade. But even for a guy like him who has that resume, that means so much. First of all, the ovation, I think, meant a ton for him. I think Cardinal fans are excited to have him back in the fold. They're happy he didn't say yes to that initial trade to the Houston Astros. And for him, he talked about diving into his work this offseason. He talked about trying to not focus on the noise. We saw that in spring training. He was diligent in his work. He was a fantastic teammate, but you want it to come out when you're actually playing the real games that matter, and that happened. He talked about it after the game. I believe he was on headset with MLB Network, and he talked about the fact, he's like, man, I'm more nervous for this game for opening day than pretty much any other game that I've ever been a part of, because you're all amped up. You want to put out a good showing. You want to show up for the fans. So I really do think that having that sort of fan support, by the way, the home run that he hit, pretty impressive. A ball that he wasn't getting to at all last year. That was 98 up in, I think it was his fastest swing speed. You know, we track swing speeds now. Fastest swing speed that he had all of last year.
You know damn well I know they're tracking the swing speed.
Who am I talking to?
Back here.
Who am I talking to? My bad.
He's got an Excel sheet.
Yeah. Anyways, they're tracking swing speeds now.
There it is.
But they're tracking it all. But I love seeing that. I love seeing the hands, the quickness, the ability to get to that baseball in the inner half. And I do think, to your point, I think that pumps him up a little bit. And he is motivated anyhow. I love the fact that the fans had his back. And, boy, they're going to have his back if he has the season that we expect him to have.
He had some really good comments about Lars Nootbaar as well, talking about how, if he can stay healthy, Lars Nootbaar's just got all the elements that you want as a difference maker. And you saw that once again, BT. What's the ceiling for a guy like that, health put aside?
Well, I think that he does everything for you, and I love him in the leadoff spot. I know the Cardinals have a few different candidates that could be there. I'm sure you could see Donovan in that spot. Certainly we saw Mason win there more than anybody else a year ago, although you look at some of the on-base numbers, doesn't necessarily profile there. But Newt just has that perfect storm of he is incredibly patient. He's got one of the lowest swing rates in all of baseball, if not the lowest swing rate in all of baseball. He'll take his walks, but he will also do damage on pitches in the strike zone. Try to sneak a fastball by him on the upper part of the zone. It ain't happening. He's as good up there as anybody. So I think that offensively, you're looking at a guy, especially off the top, who could score 100 runs, who could hit 20-plus home runs very easily out of the leadoff spot. It's going to get on base all the time, and he's just going to be one of those constant, using the straw that stirs the drink kind of guys.
Could he be for them what Dexter Fowler... Now, these lineups are different. I want to say that on the front end. But could he be for the Cardinals in that leadoff spot what Dexter Fowler was for the Cubs in the leadoff spot?
Is that because I said straw that stirs the drink? Is that why?
Exactly.
Yeah.
You go, we go thing. You had your phrase. They had theirs.
It's a buzzword, BT.
And it's early on. Dexter Fowler had himself a very, very good major league career, and I'm a big fan of Dex and what he did. I think that Lars Nootbaar's offensive skill set is better than what Dexter Fowler has. I think that he's more patient. I believe that he can do more damage up there. So the key is he needs to stay healthy, and to no fault of his own. I mean, freak injury is going to happen. 109 games a year ago. 120, I believe, is his high water mark in his major league career. But you guys look at all the advanced metrics. Go on his baseball savant page. You see just red. I mean, he is a StatCast darling the way that he goes about it. So I think that the upside is really high. And I also think that they've done a good job of they don't put a ton of pressure on him. Let him go out, do his thing. He's getting better and better every year. He's coming into his own. And I'm really excited. He's among many players, but I'm super excited for 2025. I feel like year of the Newt could end up being a thing.
There we go.
Yeah, hashtag that.
Yeah, hashtag it right now, BT. You've had 3 hashtags already in this segment.
We'll put it on a T-shirt.
What was the first one you had? It was hungry and... It was another H word. Shows you how good it was.
Hustle and
hunger. That's what it was.
Yeah. I feel that could work, too.
Just
go ahead and credit all of these for me. I'm an idea guy. They just keep on coming. Now, I don't capitalize on any of them. Far too lazy.
Don't worry. We'll monetize this stuff. You just keep bringing the ideas.
Yeah,
we'll
you get 5%.
Okay,
you get 5%.
It's kind of like the caca thing. Boy, somebody monetized that right away. Don't know if it's exactly where it started, but it doesn't matter.
That's right. There's money to be made. Somebody's going to make a buck off of it. BT, appreciate the time, man. Looking forward to doing this with you each and every Friday throughout the Cardinals season. Enjoy the games this week, and we'll talk with you again next week.
Absolutely, fellas. Thanks for having me.
See you, BT.
That's Brad Thompson, Cardinals analyst on FanDuel Sports Midwest. You can check him out this week in Cardinals versus the Minnesota Twins, Saturday and Sunday. Both of those games are day games. Coming up next, 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line for Ask Us Anything here on BK and Ferrario.
T-Bone here to tell you about my friends at DraftKings Pick 6. Look, aren't you ready to win real money? Because at Pick 6, you can win big cash prizes, and you don't have to worry about picking teams. All you need to focus on are player stats. The app is super easy to use, and Pick 6 is available in most states, including here in Missouri. And all you got to do, choose more or less on player stats. Look, I was playing last night. A lot going on. You're able to do it for Cardinals baseball, which I did. The Sweet 16 ended up hitting on my play for the 3 stars where I had Flag, Sears, and Toppin going for more than their points at more than 15 and a half. Hit on that, $10, was able to win 50 plus. So download the DraftKings Pick 6 app now and use my code 101WXOS. That's code 101WXOS for new customers to play $5, get $50 in Pick 6 credits. Better payouts, bigger wins, only with Pick 6 from DraftKings. The crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Must be 18 plus. Age and eligibility restrictions vary by jurisdiction. Void where prohibited. One per new customer. Bonus award is non-drawable Pick 6 credits that expire in 14 days. Limited time offer. See terms at pick6.draftkings.com/promos.
Live from the Centene Community Ice Center inside the ENB Granite Studios, this is BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN. ENB Granite, Bernie Federko's only choice for granite countertops, cabinets, and flooring. You've got questions, we may have the answers. Maybe. It's BK and Ferrario's Questions and Answers on 101 ESPN.
314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line for Ask Us Anything. If you guys have any questions, sports or otherwise, we'll get to them right now here on BK and Ferrario. From the 573. Guys, potentially dumb question here.
Never dumb questions.
Is Snuggerud really that good that he could go straight from college to the NHL without taking a single game in the AHL? Is he a fourth liner? What is he? What can I expect as a Blues fan?
He's a shot. That's what he is. Is he ready for the NHL? I mean, if you ask guys that watch him on a daily basis, like John Buccigross, who I'm hoping to get on for pregame tomorrow, he said after that game last night, this kid's ready for the NHL. Is he going to step right in and be a 50-goal scorer? No. And if anybody tells you that, they're insane. I've never said that. But what he is he has an elite shot. And when you put an elite shot on a team that understands the gravity of the game, they find those guys. Put him on a line with Robert Thomas. Is he going to match up defensively well? No. But Jim Montgomery's not going to play him 21 minutes a night. He's going to do with him what he did with Dalibor Dvorsky. You put him in ideal situations, offensive zone faceoffs, power play scenarios, but he has an NHL shot. That's why he goes into the lineup. And by the end of the season, which is why, to BK's point, it's good to get him in so many games, by the end of the regular season, maybe when the first round of the playoffs start, he understands the style that you have to play at the NHL level.
He's not going to be alone in this regard. Like, there's other guys across the league that when they got into the league, or even now, still to this day, are just, hey, I have a really good shot. That's kind of what I bring to the table. If you're wanting something more than that, you're looking for the wrong dude. But
Patrick Laine.
Exactly.
Yeah,
dude.
well, he's not Patrick Laine. I can promise you that.
But even if he is, just in terms of like the style of play without the body language nonsense. But, dude, I'll sign up for that. That's a hell of a starting point for an NHL career, is to have that attribute. And then I can build from there, right? We can build the rest of the game, and I trust Jim Montgomery to do so. But coming in, having that kind of a shot, the one-timer on the power play, if you were watching the game last night, you saw that. That's the thing that they're missing desperately right now. He can fit in right there immediately. Where does he fit into the lineup? My guess would be on the third line, Alex. I think this top six, if Booch is back, I think this top six is fine as currently constructed. My assumption would be that he ends up on the third line. I will be curious to see what they do there, though. Do you go with Bolduc on that top line now with Booch?
I actually think you put Snuggerud up there. I think you try him with Thomas and Buchnevich, because what you don't want Bolduc and Snuggerud on the same line.
What I was going to say is Neighbors with Sonny and Snuggerud.
You could absolutely do that.
With Bolduc continuing to stick with that top line, and you do Bolduc, Booch, and Thomas, and then my third line is the one that ends up kind of getting...
The only reason that I wonder if Montgomery doesn't want to do that is because if you do that, now you've lost a line in terms of that third line. And I wonder if he, this is just me like spitballing in my mind, Neighbors is a guy that you could plug in any line and he has success. We've seen it already this season. Sundqvist and Bolduc have had a lot of chemistry together. Thomas and Buchnevich have had a lot of chemistry together. So maybe you can plug in a Snuggerud with Thomas and Booch and get that chemistry back with that third line and hope that you can go back to rolling four lines.
And for me, my perspective on this is I've seen Bolduc have that chemistry with that top line already. And that third line is the one that they've been mixing and matching the most so far this year. So if I can continue to get the most out of Bolduc, and you mentioned Neighbors fits in anywhere, he's going to go to the front of the net. You know exactly what he is. He's predictable.
Right.
That's the best thing about his game, is that he's predictable. And if we're being honest, one of the things that you could probably say about Jimmy Snuggerud, he's probably going to be pretty predictable.
Very much.
You know where he's going to be. You know where the shot's going to come from, and you still can't stop it. It's the hope. So Snuggerud's going to be floating on the outside most likely because of the shot. Neighbors is at the front of the net, and Sonny's just the guy that you can trust. You know what he's going to bring to the table. So that's my guess in terms of what I think they will do. I'll be curious to see what it is, though, because I could totally see them saying, hey, Snuggerud's a stud. He's going to be here long term. He's a top-line player. I just don't know if he's going to be somebody that I trust for 18-plus minutes a night. 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line for Ask Us Anything. If you guys have any questions, sports or otherwise, go ahead and get them in right now. From Marty on the text line, would all be forgiven, in your opinion, if Mo and the Birds were to win it all this season? Absolutely.
I 100%. I think so.
Absolutely.
I think if Mo builds a winner, even though it would come about in a weird way.
Build a winner?
You have to give him credit for it, and everything would be forgiven, because this, unlike the 2011 team, which he doesn't get enough credit for, in my opinion.
Agreed.
Every piece of this roster was brought in by Mo. 2011, he couldn't say that about Albert. He was drafted by Walt Jocketty. Same with Yadier Molina. But he did make the moves at the trade deadline that helped get them over the top in that World Series run. And, of course, he traded Edmonds for David Freese. Kind of a hero in that World Series. I think everything would be forgiven if he can find a way, if they end up winning it all this year.
Yeah, I agree with that. I still think there's going to be a large group of people that just don't like Mo because of his tone, his attitude, whatever it might be. But, yeah, if you win, I think a lot of people forget about the hatred towards an individual.
If they win it all, you think, well, the parade's going down Market Street, he's going, I'm coming back for one more, baby.
After how his presser went yesterday, no, I think Mo's ready to be done.
All right, from the 314, final question here for Ask Us Anything. We'll get to Mike McKenna, former NHL goalie, here in just about 5 minutes. Guys, did you have any takeaways from the Sweet 16 last night? Florida, Duke, Bama, and Texas Tech moving on. I had one big takeaway, and that was, man, this Elite Eight's going to be amazing. You saw last night, Cooper Flagg, just a ridiculous performance. Caleb Love, the St. Louisan, did everything that he could to keep Arizona in that game. Cooper Flagg and Duke were just simply too much. that's no shot against Arizona. Duke's unbelievable. Alabama, Mark Sears had a crazy good game. Florida did what they've done against basically everybody. And then Texas Tech, the comeback that they had, down 16 with 10 minutes left in that game.
That was a fun game, finally.
That was more about Texas Tech than it was about Arkansas, too. Texas Tech just took that game and ran with it. So you had some good basketball. It was more about individuals for the first 3 games, and then the last game of the night gave us a really fun one down the stretch. But my biggest takeaway was just what this means for the Elite Eight, and we were right. It's chalk.
Yeah. I didn't see much of it last night because of Blues, and then I was locked in on the Snuggerud game. So I'll get more into tonight's games.
How many times did we say it's going to be the 1s and 2s? Maybe you get a 3 in there?
My Final Four is still alive.
So I think most people's Final Fours are probably still alive.
3 1s and a 2, and Tennessee was my 2.
If you picked a 1 or a 2, your Final Four is probably still alive today.
Yeah. And I'm sorry that I ever yelled at you for saying, would you pick it up, Seth, for crying out loud?
No.
Coming up next, 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line to get involved in the show. We've got Mike McKenna, former NHL goalie. He's going to stop by, hang out with us here for a little bit, talk about that Blues game from last night and what lies ahead for them here on BK and Ferrario.
Ferrario are broadcasting live from the E&B Granite Studios at the Centene Community Ice Center on 101 ESPN. E&B Granite, Bernie Federko's only choice for granite countertops, cabinets, and flooring. We're going between the pipes with former NHL goaltender Mike McKenna.
Between the Pipes is refreshed by Macadoodle Spirits, fine wine, beer, and cigars. Now open in Darden Prairie.
What a day, Alex. We had Brad Thompson on video today. Everybody could see his beautiful face on the stream. And now we have Mike McKenna in person with us out of the E&B Granite Studios at the Centene Community Ice Center. Mike McKenna, former NHL goalie, joins us each and every week on behalf of Macadoodles here on BK and Ferrario. Mike, appreciate the time as always, man. How you doing today?
Man, I'm doing great. You know, popping bottles over the Blues right now, I think. This is exciting, man. I got to tell you, I've had more people in contact with me in the past couple days that it's funny because it starts off like 3 weeks ago when this streak started to roll a little bit. It was, is this team for real? And now it's turned into, oh man, like, can they do damage?
Yeah.
And these are real questions with valid answers because this team's gonna make the playoffs. They're making the playoffs. Like, this isn't even like discussing that anymore. And all season long I'm wavering. Oh, I don't know. They're probably bubble. Maybe. No, they're making it. And they're going to be a problem, dude. Like, the Blues are going to be a problem for somebody.
You played in 2018, 2019, right, Mike?
Yeah.
But that was your final season, and I think it ended early on because I think I remember I seen you at Enterprise Center a lot that season.
Yeah.
Does this give you 2019 vibes?
To a certain extent. 2019 was just crazy, though, man. And I had a front row ticket to it. The game that Jordan Bennington started as first for the Blues was in Philadelphia. It was the first game I dressed with the Flyers that year. And, of course, I was opening the door on the bench.
Looked good, though. Towel around the neck. I know it.
If you want to learn how to open and close doors, bro, I got you. But, no, I mean, they'd just been in the doldrums that year. They'd already fired everybody, but this year it feels different because they've been an okay team all season. It just felt like they finally all came together and gelled, and it's all been – I mean, Jim Montgomery's been the catalyst for it all, guys. No doubt about it. But it's just watching these players come into roles now, and not just Holloway, but, I mean, like Bolduc and Neighbors and go down the list. Like, just go watch warm-ups,
Yeah.
We were there Tuesday against Montreal. Our whole family was, and you see who's running the warm-up, Jake Neighbors. Right? Watch the guys pass the puck around in front of the net at the end of it. Like, the young guys are driving the boat, and it's almost like the proud, daddy duck walking along is Braden Shen, right?
Yeah.
Like, he's kind of daddy duck, but the little ducks now are all grown up. So that's kind of what's led to this, I think.
That's the other thing that's different from 2019, right? Like, 2019 had expectations going in. It was, we have added the pieces, now we are a Stanley Cup contender, and it fell flat, and it was like, what would happen? This is now potentially the end of this run of Blues hockey, whereas this year was, okay, maybe it's the beginning of whatever the next era looks like for the St. Louis Blues, and now you're seeing it all come together, and it happened seemingly overnight, over 2 weeks worth of nights during that Four Nations face-off break. And you're talking about, like, big picture. What can this team be? And we've all been asking those questions during this stretch of what's the ceiling look like? What are they capable of? Could they make the playoffs? Could they win a round in the playoffs? Are they a problem in the playoffs? And it just keeps growing and growing. I feel like the same thing is happening with the players as well.
Yeah.
Like, every time I watch Dylan Holloway take the ice, I'm wondering, and to a greater degree, what's the ceiling look like now? Or Zach Bolduc, what's the ceiling look like now? Broberg, once again, what's the ceiling look like? It's crazy on an individual level how much some of these guys have changed our impressions of them during the stretch of hockey as well.
Yeah, and you still get to mix in more down the stretch here. Like, you're gonna see Snuggerud, right, at some point, right? Maybe. I don't know. But, like, Dvorsky, Snuggerud, these are guys that even a couple of years from now are going to play a huge role. And the only question mark for me as a team, big picture, is, what does that back end look like on the D-core a couple of years from now? There's prospects galore. They're in a great spot with goaltending. Bennington, Hofer, phenomenal place with that. It feels like a player like a Holloway is just finally, and it's not even a finally, like, Edmonton must just be kicking themselves, man. He's tucked 25, and I'm telling you, like, we said it last week, I think he could do 80 or 85 in a season. I'm not backing off that. Like, and it's not just that he's good with the puck. It's not just that he's got a great shot that we saw. Like, the physicality to his game is what I didn't know was there. Like, he's burying dudes. And he's making space for himself on the ice. And he's got a huge frame in the first place. But it's one thing to carry the puck and create space. It's another to be scary. And that's the part of this Blues team that didn't exist to me in the first. They weren't a scary team to play against. Right now, they're scary for a couple reasons. They move the puck in the offensive zone. When they get that spin cycle going, there's no positions. The D are low.
Yep.
Robert Thompson below the goal line. He goes out high.
It's what Colorado does with Cale Makar.
Exactly. So they're taking pages from other teams. They've got the skill set to do it. But the Blues can play a heavy game now, too. And I think that that's actually catching teams off guard. I don't think that their impression of the Blues at the start of the season, it is not the same team, dude.
For good reason.
Exactly. And they are in your face. They're on you. They're physical. And this is why, remember, this start of the year, Nathan Walker, where's he fit in the lineup? He's not moving out of that lineup.
No chance.
You know, he had, 10 hits in the third the other night against Montreal? Like, it's just, they're just a ton of fun to watch right now, man. And here's the thing. Down the stretch here, they are gonna have an awful game.
Yeah.
Please, fans, don't jump to conclusions.
Right.
Felt like it could have been last night.
Yeah, but even their awful games, they're keeping it close and they're staying competitive.
But they're going to have one where they lose like 6-1
Sure.
and they get throttled.
Could be tomorrow.
But you know what's going to happen? The next game, they're going to go out and win it. Like, I'm not making predict. I just know this is going to happen.
Yeah.
And that's where I think they're at as a team. They're resilient enough that even if they go have a stinker, they can come back, play great hockey, and be right on track. It feels like that mental space is where it needs to be.
So, Mike, let me ask you then about Jimmy Snuggerud, because that's what everybody's talking about right now. You played college hockey before you went pro. What is this? How quick can he acclimate to the NHL? Is he faster than juniors players or American Hockey League players? Does he fit in once he signs?
It's a huge jump, guys. Like, now, when somebody like him signs, it's always interesting because sometimes there's little handshake promises to things. Sign early, you'll get an NHL game. You know,
yeah,
this
makes sense.
Happen. We had somebody from St. Lawrence University where I played. His last name was Carey. It's not Greg, who I played with later. His brother. You know, the Hawks signed him early to come out. He got his game in the NHL, but he burned a year of his contract off. He never got another sniff. He was in the Coast by a year and a half later.
Wow.
Now, that's not going to be Snuggerud.
Yeah.
That's not him. This guy's bona fide going to be an NHL player, but it's a huge jump. Does he get a game or two down the stretch? Does he get more than that? I'm not really sure. But you've also got somebody like Dvorsky who's been lighting up the A, doing everything he should, that really is primed and ready for a chance. Does Snuggerud really jump over that? You know, is that the path we want to do? It'll be interesting to walk that line for the Blues because he can go out there and as a winger, sure, you can float around and be okay.
Yeah.
But if you expect to take on a bigger responsibility than that, like, I mean, I covered Dylan Holloway's first game. I was between the benches for that when it was Edmonton, LA. Didn't even notice him. You know, he was just out there, and he had half a season in the American League underneath his belt. So, I'll be curious how they want to handle that one.
Can you bring him here, sign him, get him into the lineup, and protect him, given what they're doing right now? Because if it's game 1 through 15, maybe you can find a way to do that, and you just put him into specific situations. Can you do that with what they're trying to accomplish down the stretch?
Depends who's in and out of the lineup. I mean, if Buchnevich misses a bit of time, if somebody else needs a night or two off, yeah, I think so. And I think the best way to do it is, you know, and this is just, I'm just throwing out a scenario. Again, I don't know anything about, like, let's say Jordan Kyrou's a little banged up, and it's like, okay, take a couple nights off here. Like, let's put Jimmy in on the top two lines. To me, that's how you protect him. You don't protect him by putting him out on the fourth line or the third line.
Yeah, interesting. Okay.
I think you got one option, man. Top two lines.
Yeah.
That's it. And because you protect him by putting him in with players that will put him in a good place.
That cover for him
like,
when
guys,
he's on the ice.
I can't skate. I'm a terrible skater. But if I go skate with the Blues alumni and I play forward, they make me look like I fit in.
Yeah.
Because I can at least handle the puck, right? Like,
sure.
I got vision. I can handle it. I'm a horrible skater. But they'll make me look good because they put me in the right place.
Yeah.
Kind of the similar effect.
That makes a lot of sense. Okay, so down the road as we go closer to the playoffs, where do they go from there? Because Jim Montgomery has made it very clear, I'm going to ride the horses that got us here. And we saw that after Dvorsky's first game. It went right back to Texier. But if you get into the playoffs and you get a little sniff of Snuggerud, a little sniff of Dvorsky, is the best thing for them to have them with the team? Or is it to keep Dvorsky down in the American Hockey League and maybe get him a little bit of a playoff push there?
Yeah, I think you put Dvorsky in the American League and let Snuggerud stay with the NHL team. I do. Because once you get past the trade deadline like we are, you can, let's face it, you can move guys up and down as needed, right? Mm-hmm. So to me, that's best case scenario because Snuggerud's really the long play here. And if you get some time with the team in playoffs here, or even this stretch run to really know what it's like, go on the road. Be in the Never Hungry League and get fed at every moment, and you just soak it in, man. It's amazing. It's great for a player because next year he'll have potentially the American League, potentially the NHL. We'll see. Mm-hmm. To me, that's the right play for it. And I think the Blues have been good about that. Army's, I tell you, man, how quickly people doubt GMs.
I know.
You got to give Doug Armstrong a hell of a lot of credit for this season.
He's a top 3 GM of the year, right? It's going to be hard to beat out the Washington's guy, but I don't know another GM that's had a better year than what Doug Armstrong has.
What have both of those GMs done? They've both brought in top-tier coaches.
Yeah,
that's a good point.
Yeah,
Carberry in Washington. He's also got one of the best assistants in the world in Scott Allen. We were in 4 cities together, Scotty Allen and I. I think the world of the man. He rides a hog and just big handlebars. And if he ever wins a cup, I'll be there. But it took some real guts to bring in Monty. What he did. I mean, to me, it was kind of it took a lot of guts, but it was also kind of a no-brainer. You had to do it. But it's still a big swing, man.
And the offseason, too. Offer sheets
that nobody
does. And then for the Capitals, it's a big move for Pierre-Luc Dubois, where everybody else is looking at it as a potential salary dump. They're like, yeah, we'll take all of it. And you bet all of the contract, we'll go ahead and take that on.
And you bet on a goalie that was a bona fide backup with the Vegas Golden Knights.
I would have never made that trade for Pierre-Luc Dubois, ever.
We laughed at it.
Yeah, we thought that the Kings were thinking the Kings were shaking hands, saying this is incredible, and now they're the ones that are fringe playoffs, and you've got Pierre-Luc Dubois, who is one of the leaders in the NHL in plus-minus this season.
We'll see what he does next year, but this year's what matters.
Yeah, you're not wrong.
Rides that wave, baby. You know what I mean? But yeah, a couple good calculated decisions. I mean, Thompson and Charlie Lindgren, it's turned out to be a good
absolutely.
Pairing. It's good because they both catch with their right hand, clearly.
There's that goalie.
But yeah, it's been fun to watch. Mm-hmm. We had fun yesterday. We were down at the PWHL game.
Oh, nice.
PWHL practice.
The warm-up for it? Yeah, the game's tomorrow.
Yeah, and then my daughter got to skate afterwards. And what was really cool is the Ottawa Chargers goalie coach is Pierre Grew. Well, I got to work with Pierre with Florida Panthers organization in the year, and then with the Senators later. So I got to catch up with the
That's
bunch.
the thing about Mike McKenna, man. If you were a journeyman in the NHL, you played for I don't even know how many teams in the AHL and the NHL. You have connection. You're that guy that knows everybody when you get to go out to a bar one night.
That's also the hockey world, right?
Yeah,
it's a big world, but also a small. Yeah.
6 degrees, I mean, he weighs me down to the ice level. And my youngest daughter, she looks at me, she goes, Daddy, here we go again.
That's awesome.
You know everybody. I'm like, man, I can't. That was my career.
Yep.
I'm just so happy to see these people.
Yeah.
And now you're with Macadoodles, doing great stuff with them. Mike McKenna joins us each and every week on behalf of Macadoodles. Mike, I know you have some big breaking news for you guys at Macadoodles, and I know you have a ton of stuff going on right now.
I'm not going to bury the lead. April 17th, Ed Belfour's coming. Hall of Famer, Stanley Cup winning netminder. It's going to happen April 17th in our store. He's going to do a memorabilia and bottle signing. Belfour Bourbon, that is his passion. That's his livelihood now. It's not a rights. It's not a branding thing. He's making the juice. It's great juice. He's going to be there. I'm so excited. He was a hero of mine as a kid. I hated the guy, though, because he was a Hawks goalie.
Yep.
But in retrospect, oh, man, the influence he had on my career, this is and this is great. So here I am going to be writing a press release for every youth hockey organization to come meet Ed. And so he's coming out. The rest of the store, we've got cool events coming up. We've got a Bordeaux event in our wine room. We've built out our hemp-derived THC drink section. We have 3, 5, 10, 20, 50 milligrams on the shelves now. So
You're showing us the 50 That's ridiculous.
Man, people can get wild if they want, dude. I don't know.
Wow.
I've got it on Instagram right now. It literally just goes full send. You know? I don't know, but that's part of our store. You know, we have diverse offerings that people may not realize, but that Ed Belfour event, boy,
it's going to be fun.
I'm super juiced about it, just from a personal level, and I think it'll be great for our customers to come in and meet a Hall of Famer and get to try some amazing whiskeys and bourbon and just get to talk shop with somebody who's, you know, not in town very often.
You going to give them a hockey stick and let them whack it over the door at Mackadoodles?
You know, I wrote an article for In Goal magazine in 2011 while I was playing. That was the Welcome to the Hall of Fame ad, and that was the key moment. I mean, I was 10 years old, and he smashed the stick over the crossbar. It was Jeff Brown scored from the point on an empty net, and Belfour went ballistic. At the time, I thought it was funny, but in retrospect, like, he was the ultimate competitor.
Yeah.
And that's I actually took a lot from that as a player. Like, that guy wanted to win, man. Like, there was no way around it. And that's why he was a gamer. It's the Jordan Bennington effect. Like,
that's the
they're gamers,
name that immediately came to mind.
They just, when the chips are down, teams wanted Ed Belfour.
Yep.
When the chips are down, teams want Jordan Bennington.
Totally.
He's Mike McKenna, former NHL goalie in his own right, joins us each and every week here on BK and Ferrario on behalf of Mackadoodles. Mike, appreciate the time as always, man. Thanks for coming out with us today. We'll talk with you again soon.
Sounds great, man. Thanks for having me.
Coming up next, what can Lars Nootbaar bring to that leadoff spot? Is he the answer now that he had success on opening day? We'll talk about it next year on 101 ESPN.
Live from the Centene Community Ice Center inside the E&B Granite Studios, this is BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN. E&B Granite, Bernie Fedorko's only choice for granite countertops, cabinets, and flooring.
T1 on BK. We're broadcasting live at the E&B Granite Studios out of the Centene Community Ice Center. If you missed any of our conversations earlier today, we were able to talk with Brad Thompson, Cardinals analyst for FanDuel Sports Midwest. We just had a great conversation about the Blues with Mike McKenna as well. You can find all of those after the show today at 101ESPN.com and the free 101 ESPN app. Those podcasts are sponsored by
Shaver Door Company.
All right, Alex, so let's talk a little bit about what we saw yesterday, because Lars Nootbaar in the leadoff spot felt right to me. Now, I am just one person. Others can have differing opinions on this. I have always been of the belief that he is the guy on this team that profiles best out of the leadoff hole. And the reason why is because of who he is as a hitter. Lars Nootbaar is incredibly patient. He swings the bat less often than I think all but like two or three other players in Major League Baseball. Like, his patience at times can actually be a problem for him, where he's too patient and he doesn't swing the bat at all. But that patience plays in the leadoff spot. It doesn't play as well when you're batting third and you need to drive in runs. It doesn't play as well when you're batting fifth and you're a guy that needs to have that contact rate that you have from Alec Burleson, for example. The best place for that patience, where it profiles best, get on base at every possible opportunity from that leadoff hole. And this is something that we've seen from any team that Kyle Schwarber has played for. If you can also add some power, that changes the way that the opposition has to pitch to the top of the order. So that combination of high on base from a walk rate, not from a high average, high on base because of the walk rate, and a little bit of slug, it's the ideal scenario for me as a manager if I'm putting together my lineup as a leadoff hitter. You saw that yesterday. He goes 2 for 4, hits the home run, and also scores another run out there, has 2 ribbies on the day. That's what I'm hoping for out of Lars Nootbaar over the course of the season, but probably with more walks added in there. Alex, when you saw it yesterday, you saw the proof of concept. What came to mind for you about what this can be with Noot at the top of the order?
It's what you said. It's the patience at the plate, and it's just understanding the situation that you're in. And I loved what BT told us in terms of what Brant Brown is preaching to these guys. You know, there's a time to hit and there's a time to slug. And I think that perfectly encapsulates what Lars Nootbaar is. Like, when you're in that leadoff spot, there is a time to just go up there and hit. There's a time to be patient, make contact, and make a difference. But there's also a time to go up there and slug. And I think he's one of the few guys that can do both of those things. So that's why it's such an ideal scenario of having him as a leadoff hitter. I think Brendan Donovan could do the exact same thing, too, with Lars Nootbaar if he was the leadoff hitter. But for Lars Nootbaar, that ceiling is difference maker at the top of the lineup. Not so much of just a guy who can get on base, but a guy who's got the slug, who's got the ability to drive runs in, but also has the ability to just shift the momentum towards the Cardinals in that leadoff spot. So it really sounds like, after talking with BT, that what Brant Brown is telling these hitters might actually come through for a lot of younger guys in terms of time to hit, time to slug. You know, hitters don't hit home runs. Pitchers are throwing home runs. It sounds like this guy's got the right message for a lot of young guys.
And we'll see. We'll see. It's one game, right? It sounds like so far they have taken to it. There was also a point in time when people liked what Jeff Albert was doing with them, and it seemed as though that approach had really it resonated with the players. Right. And then suddenly it didn't. And then suddenly you're having Mike Schultz go to the players and saying, hey, that approach that we had, scrap all of it. This isn't working. We've got to go to something completely different. And then it became kind of helter-skelter with all of that. But there was a point in time where that was absolutely working for them. We'll see if this is able to sustain for them. Just as context for what I'm talking about here and why I think Noot profiles best in that leadoff spot. Last season, now he only played 109 games, so this is a limited sample size. But if you just go by the volume numbers, right, let's not make this too nerdy or too difficult. He had 52 walks on the season. He had 85 hits. Like, Lars Nootbaar had, relatively speaking, close to the same number of walks as hits. That plays in the leadoff spot because the goal is to get guys on base so then you can drive them in, right? That is the role of the leadoff hitter, at least in a traditional sense. Where that doesn't play is basically anywhere else, 2 through 6. But Noot is too good to not be in the top 6 of your lineup. And when you have him on base, and this is something that when you have him up to the plate and you've got other guys that are on, and this is something that I think drives Cardinals fans crazy, is that he's going up there and taking a walk. It's like, cool. But the guy was on second. The next guy up in our lineup, this is if Newt was hitting like 5th or 6th or whatever. Next guy up in our lineup is not as good of a hitter as you are. They're not as capable as you are of driving that runner in, and you just took a walk, which might end up hurting our baseball team when we've got 2 outs right now, and we needed you to put that ball in play. And that's something that became a problem over time with Newt. I'm glad they finally have him in a position that I think is going to bring out the best in Lars Nootbaar. It will help fans to appreciate what he can bring to the table instead of looking for what he doesn't bring to the table, which is that high batting average that I know everybody craves, but I don't know how realistic it is for his specific batter profile.
Yeah, I'm disappointed I haven't made this comp before, but I think with him in the leadoff spot, I think what you're looking at is potential like what George Springer has done when he's in the leadoff spot. Because you look at Springer's career, he's not a guy that steals bases, and like 15 is the most he's gotten. 16 is his career high when he's hitting the leadoff spot.
And that feels very similar to Newt.
Yeah, and you look at his career, 267 average, 350 on base, 474 slug out of the leadoff spot. Now, maybe the average dips a little bit, but like last year, Newt hit 260 in his limited time. Springer draws a little bit less walks than what Nootbaar does.
Sure.
But that's kind of what you're looking for. Where you look at George Springer, and if you said, hey, George Springer was like hit in the middle of our order, you'd go, okay, that's a good player, but he's kind of out of place. That's where I'm with you. I like what they're doing with Nootbaar in this leadoff spot, because I was trying to think when BT said, he brings a little bit of pop to the top of the order. I was like, well, it's not Schwarber Pop who hits leadoff. I was like, who's someone that's like a 20-homer guy? It's George Springer. Like, that's the guy that you're hoping Nootbaar can kind of be serving in this leadoff spot. And I wouldn't say Springer's a superstar, but he's a star. And when he's
one
healthy
of the best players on World Series contending teams.
And he can he can kick off a ball game with a bang too. So I just now looking
at that. What kind of a bang are we talking about?
Whoa!
Home
Hey,
run
easy
game.
guys, easy guys.
Yeah.
How did that happen? Was there trash cans involved?
There were bangs. It was just different types of bangs.
Yeah. Okay, I now see what you were going for there, because I didn't pick up on that.
And you're the one that hates cheating.
I know. I mean, he won't be in the Hall of Fame in my book, but
He's just an incredible player.
I think that's what you're kind of hoping for with him in this leadoff spot.
Yeah. I mean, I love the comp, and I mean, think of that type of player when he was a free agent, when he left Houston, and how many people were talking. I mean, we were talking about George Springer in St. Louis. Think of what he did minus the trash cans with Houston. It's a difference maker, and he wasn't the superstar difference maker. He was I guess for Houston at the time, he was the complementary piece that made the puzzle work.
Somebody else on the text line brought up what I think is a pretty good comparison as well, which is Ian Happ. Ian Happ's just a really good overall player.
Yeah.
Just a really good overall player. 250 hitter, gets on base 35% of the time, 15, 20% above league average, consistently a 20 home run hitter, steals 10 to 15 bags. Like, just all around a player that you want as part of your team, and you're better because he's a part of it. Yep. He's not going to be the one that puts you over the top. But if you have Ian Happ on your team, you're in a pretty good spot. I think that's actually a really good comparison that I had genuinely never thought of prior. But yeah, I think Newt could be very similar for the Cardinals to what Ian Happ has become for the Chicago Cubs. And I remember there was a point in time where Cubs fans were very down on Ian Happ.
Yeah.
They thought he had not lived up to any of the expectations.
And didn't he have injury issues too for a little bit with Chicago?
If I remember correctly, that might have been the case. I can't remember for sure.
19 played only 58 games.
Okay.
Outside that, he's been
pretty healthy.
Yeah, he's been like 142 to 148.
Okay, so it's not been consistent
it's what you're
injuries.
hoping Lars Nootbaar can be. It was fun to watch. The other thing that I would add here, Alex, final thing from yesterday's game that I want to get to before we talk a little bit more about the Blues. I thought Ollie Marmol had a really good day. I know I'm always the guy that's going to be a little higher on Ollie than Minnie. I thought the lineup looked good, and I said that before the game yesterday, and certainly we saw the results follow accordingly. But I think you saw some of what he's going to try to do this year with the defensive replacements that he's got going in there. Ivan Herrera had a terrible throw. I think it slipped. I hope it slipped.
It was wet out there.
We weren't going to mention it.
A really horrible throw to second, and it felt like immediately Ollie was like, all right, Baez, get in the game. Baez goes out there for the ninth inning. You got everything you needed offensively out of Ivan Herrera. That's the perfect way to utilize Pedro Baez in a situation like that. Hey, go in there. Just make sure this doesn't get away from us. And that's what Pedro Baez was able to do. And then he used Michael Ciani before that as a pinch runner for Ivan Herrera. So you use the value of Ciani, which is speed, and then throw him out there defensively, and you use the defense of Pedro Pajes. I thought he managed the hell out of that situation. And then with the pitching side of things, once you found out that Fernandez was unavailable yesterday, all of the other moves started to make a lot of sense. Because when he first brought in Kyle Lee, I was like, Why is Leahy the one that's coming in this situation? And after the game, Ollie was like, yeah, listen, Fernandez was down. He should be available for us on Saturday, but that influenced the way that we did things starting in the 6th inning, and then it had the trickle-down effect from there. I was like, okay, that makes a lot more sense.
Yeah, I hope that's the way they use Pedro Pages, because I wasn't upset that Herrera comes out after that at-bat. He did his job offensively, and frankly, he was a difference maker for you. Defensively, he had one bad slip up there. I thought overall he was fine. Wasn't great, wasn't a difference maker, but, he was fine enough behind the plate. And I know big picture, long-term, Herrera's not your long-term catcher. There's going to be another position that he's playing at, whether it's first base, DH moving forward. So to me, that was the scenario where it's like, hey, you did your job. You went 2 for 3. You had a massive play to where you came up with a big run for the Cardinals. It was time to come out of the game and lock down the rest of the way.
And we might be singing a different tune if in that 9th inning things got away from them for whatever reason. Twins come back, and then suddenly you need Ivan Herrera's bat in the lineup. So that's something to keep in mind. I thought he played this right. I thought he did it the right way, and I would say that even if it came back around. I thought Ollie managed a good game yesterday. There are going to be days where he does the exact same stuff and it doesn't work for him. It could have gone that way with the bullpen, right? Kyle Leahy, it almost got away from him there.
Yeah, Scott
Thankfully,
saved that from getting away from him.
It didn't. But I thought the buttons that he pushed were the right buttons. Hopefully they can continue to execute, and that's ultimately what determines if they're going to win or lose these games. All right, with Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. Jordan Deacon back in the studio for us today as we're broadcasting live from the E&B Granite Studios out at the Centene Community Ice Center. Coming up next, Alex is all in on Dylan Holloway. That's not something new, but we've got another way to frame this discussion. When was the last time that the Blues were able to acquire an early 20s star? We'll talk about that next year on 101 ESPN.
101 ESPN Sports Center.
I'm Jordan Deacon. The Sports Center update is brought to you by Saliga Heating and Cooling. This weekend, we have the NCAA tournament happening on 101 ESPN, kicking off right after the Fast Lane today. The Sweet 16 pregame coverage will start at 6 o'clock. Tomorrow, Elite 8 coverage will start as the pregame will happen at 7:45 after the Blues game, and then Elite 8 coverage will pick back up on Sunday with pregame at 1 o'clock. Again, you can hear all of that action right here on 101 ESPN. I'm Jordan Deacon. The Sports Center update was brought to you by Saliga Heating and Cooling, an independent American Standard heating and air conditioning dealer.
This is BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN. We're broadcasting live from the E&B Granite Studios at the Centene Community Ice Center. E&B Granite, Bernie Fedurko's only choice for granite countertops, cabinets, and flooring.
Alongside Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. It's BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. I feel like every night that we end up watching Dylan Holloway, we think to ourselves, how did this happen? How were the Blues able to acquire this kind of player?
Not just us. Spittin' Chicklets, it feels like every episode is talking about how Edmonton bleeped this up.
It just doesn't make sense. He's going to hit 30 goals this year, dude. He's at 26 goals, 62 points. He's a plus 20 on the ice for the Blues right now. And every night he shows you a new skill. Like, the physicality has been implemented into his game, not just with the puck, but also away from the puck now. The shot's always been there. The speed has always been there. He's been good on the power play for you. He has 6 goals there. He's tied for the team lead in power play goals on the season. He's a better distributor, I think, than I expected him to be coming into the season. It's crazy what we're witnessing from Dylan Holloway. And then you remind yourself, he's 23. He's 23 years old, and he's posting this kind of a season in his first full season in the NHL. And so, Alex, I thought to myself, because you were talking about this, and you're like, man, the Blues, look at what Edmonton did. They totally screwed this up.
Yeah.
True. I want to look at this from the more positive angle, though, which is the Blue side of things.
Yeah, but it's negative on another team. That's why I was taking that path.
The Edmonton Oilers screwed it up, and the Blues could not have hit it out of the park anymore than what they did. And you look at it and think, when was the last time that the Blues were able to acquire a potential star player in their early 20s? And, dude, I looked up players in their early 20s, prior to turning age 25, that posted at least 50 points in a season. And in the last 15 years, there's not a single one of them that came from outside of the organization. All of them drafted and developed internally. The last one to do what I'm talking about, 50-plus points prior to turning 25 in a Blues uniform, that did not come from inside of the organization, was Brad Boyes back in 2008. And that, you mentioned, a little bit of a one-hit wonder there.
Yeah.
Prior to that, you got to go back to 2000 when it was Dimitra and Pronger, who came from outside of the organization. Before that, Shanny, Gianni, and Jeff Brown. End of list from 1990 up until today.
Mm-hmm.
Alex, we're talking about the Blues doing stuff that they've done basically once in the last 25 years, and they've had some pretty damn consistent success over the last 25 years. How did Doug Armstrong pull this off?
He pulled it off by incredible manipulation of understanding where a team was at. But two, it's not so much how he pulled it off, it's how he expedited this retool. Like, I think he fast-forwarded this retool 2 years. Like, he skipped to the best part. Because typically, it takes you a while to find this guy. Like, you draft and develop. Like, let's say Holloway and Broberg were never here. You would still be sitting there putting a ton of pressure on Kyrou and Buchnevich to be the top guys for this team, and you'd be impatiently waiting for Zach Bolduc to become a star. You'd be impatiently waiting for Jimmy Snuggerud to become a star, and you'd be impatiently waiting for guys like Otto Stenberg to be a star who may never become one. All of those guys are still 3 to 4 years away from probably hitting that level. And instead, what you did... Oh, and I didn't even mention on the defensive side, you had nothing in your system. You were waiting on Theo Lindstein, who may not even be playing in North America for another year. So you would have been sitting here waiting for guys to become stars. All the while, you would have just been stuck in this middle of going out there and finding these players to fill holes so you could get to these prospects and give them a chance and let them learn. And instead, what you did was you fast-forwarded and you said, no, we don't need to worry about you guys anymore. develop in the minors, develop as a third-line winger, stay in college. We got this guy. This guy's able to take that load so that when you come to the NHL, all you need to be is what Dylan Holloway was supposed to be. And Broberg, we don't need to worry about defensemen anytime soon. We're good. We'll get there. That's where you're at right now. And frankly, I think the Pavel Demitra is the better comp than Brad Boyes, because Boyes at the time was this gem that you traded for. And you're like, whoa, where'd this come from? But it just never was consistent. They were a team at the time that had, and I want to go back and make sure I have this right with the roster, but they were a team at the time that already had Brett Hull, Pierre Turgeon, Al McKenna, Chris Pronger. You had the stars. And you were like, we don't have that depth. We don't have those younger pieces to come in and be the secondary scoring. And you trade a couple of guys that were no names for Pavel Demitra, and he steps in and immediately becomes an 89-point producer, 75-point producer. Like, that's what Dylan Holloway has become. He basically became a top six winger for you without the growing pains of waiting for somebody to take that spot.
I love what you said about if you didn't have Holloway, you were putting more pressure on other young players. Because I just put together the line combinations out of curiosity. What would it have looked like if they didn't have Holloway out there? Neighbors is on that top line. It's probably Neighbors, Thomas, and Booch, which is what we saw for a decent portion of the season. But really where it begins, that second line, Kyrou and Shin, but then you have Bolduc probably. Starting on opening night, having to be a top six contributor.
Who wasn't ready for that role at that point.
No, clearly. No. They had him in and out of the lineup as a third liner who was playing like 8, 9, 10 minutes a night consistently. So maybe what it probably would have done, Texier would have been a top six player for you at the beginning of the season, and that clearly would not have worked.
Yeah, I saw your face, T-Bone. Everyone on YouTube did.
And Matthew Joseph would have, instead of being he's in and out of the lineup, he has a specific role for us, we use him in certain ways. No, now he has to be an every-night third-line player that sometimes has to move up in the lineup as well. And if it didn't work out with Texier, and I think we can see it probably would not have, Joseph might have been in your top six.
Well, and also, don't forget, Brandon Saad was still on this team.
Sure.
And, guys, Kasperi Kapanen was still on this team.
Oh, I forgot.
Kapanen would be a third liner for you. Saad would be a second liner for you.
And if we're being honest, it probably would have forced their hand with Dvorsky.
Yep.
It probably would have forced them to bring up Dvorsky earlier than they wanted to, and it probably would have forced them to put Dvorsky out on the wing, or it would have forced them to acknowledge what is probably obvious for all of us, which is this isn't working. We're going to have to trade Shin, and this is just going to have to be a year from hell for us. And that's the craziest part is Holloway's ascent might have kept Braden Shin in St. Louis. Because this season might have gone off of the rails, dude. And if it did, you might have had to answer those calls for Braden Shin. And maybe at that point, Shin looks at this and says, thank God I've got an escape hatch because this is miserable. Yep. And this would be year 3, basically, of it not going the way that he wanted it to. You don't see the light at the end of the tunnel because you're not on a line with Kyrou and Holloway, which has to be fun as hell for Braden Shin every single night. You're not seeing Broberg's big ass get up on his horse driving to the net on a regular basis. Like, it changes everything.
You fast-forwarded it.
The entire course of the Blues, like whatever the next 5 years, good, bad, somewhere in between, whatever this ends up looking like, those offer sheets that he was able to go out there and give out last offseason successfully, talking about Doug Armstrong, it changed the course of the franchise's history.
Yeah.
I'm not overstating this here. It could have gone in a completely different direction, which might have resulted in a rebuild instead of a retool. So not only did he ignite this retool into contention, he avoided a potential full rebuild because of 2 moves with the same team and Edmonton screwing it all up.
And look at it this way, too. The NHL is a copycat league. I guarantee you there are going to be multiple teams this offseason that go offer sheet players. And they're probably going to overpay for a guy that doesn't pan out to be what they were. Doug Armstrong always seems to be ahead of the curve. We remember when he was trying to become a speed team, right? We were like, what are you doing? And didn't pan out. Now, as Mike McKenna told us, man, they've adapted this like dual threat where they have speed, but they're also physical. All of this was made possible because of 2 offer sheet players. And it's not so much that you just offer sheeted players, because I know everybody right now is speculating, could we see more of this? If teams do that now, you're going for guys who are already stars. He did it to 2 guys that you were taking a massive chance on and hope that the style they could bring and a chance that they could play would adapt to the Blues. And it didn't just adapt to the Blues. It took on a new life of itself and created this new identity for the Blues.
And it's going to be harder for other GMs to do what Army did.
Oh, yeah.
Because not only is the cap going up, but you just had to have a team that was just poorly run like the Edmonton Oilers. They didn't have their GM in place until I'm not sure if it was before or right after.
It was right before because they had signed Skinner and Arvidsson.
So like you have to have the perfect formula for it. And credit to Army, they knew what they had. They knew they had the Oilers in the perfect bind, and they go out and they make these moves. And you guys are right. I mean, it just. Everything has changed, the trajectory of where this is. And even like going into the year, because we didn't know what Holloway and Broberg were going to be as Blues, and if we're being honest, we were all more excited about Broberg than Holloway. I going into the year, it's why like me and BK were like, this could be fun, but like you look at it, you go, I don't know. I don't know if it clicks all. I mean, you're asking a lot for Holloway to come in and be even a third line guy for you to really take that step and get to like 20 goals.
They entered the season, and if those guys weren't here, BK, to your point with those lines, I think we'd be talking about next year them potentially doing what they're doing now, and that's with Snuggerud and Dvorsky in the lineup, and they're adapting. You're still probably 2 years away from the window opening. Again, I think you fast forwarded to 2 years because now your window's open, and now you just add to it so that you can become a competitive team next year.
We did get this from Ryan over on the YouTube chat, youtube.com/101ESPN-STL. He says, I'm not taking away from Holloway or Broberg, but the success didn't just come from them. This team before Montgomery was not great. He got here. He was the key. I think that's totally fair. It was Monty, along with the two moves that they made in the offseason with the offer sheets, and we've got to add in one more here, Cam Fowler.
Yeah.
Those three things that Doug Armstrong did over the course of the last 10 months, basically, were what allowed this all to be possible. Army had, it was just a bleeping heater, dude. What he was able to do is...
All right. So are we thinking no moves this offseason? Because you can't stay hot forever.
No,
right?
he can't stay hot.
He's at the blackjack table and it's time to walk away.
You got no one to hold him. You got no one to fold him.
What did they say in Hangover? You never leave a heater.
I disagree.
Is probably
keep
the right
pushing in.
I disagree.
Hey, coming up tomorrow, you can join me at Genesis of St. Charles. It'll be an afternoon filled with fun and excitement. Saturday from 1 to 3 o'clock. Bring the whole family by. We've got face painting, a balloon artist, food trucks, and a special appearance by Louie and the Blue Crew. Plus, I'll have a chance to win a pair of tickets to see the Blues in an upcoming home game. That is Saturday from 1 to 3 o'clock at Genesis of St. Charles. That's located at 5601 Veterans Memorial Parkway. You can find all the details right now at 101ESPN.com. Coming up next, we're going to dive into the junk drawer here on BK and Ferrario.
Open it up. The Junk Drawer with BK and Ferrario.
Alongside Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. It's BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. Alex, I've got a question for you. It's parenting related. I would be curious the text line's thoughts on this as well.
Yeah, T-Bone, you want to step in on this one?
Quick edition of the Junk Drawer today before we talk a little bit about Victor Scott in the next segment. So, I'm going to Banana Ball next week. You know I'm very excited about this. The Savannah Bananas.
Is that a game you play with your wife or something?
Nope. Savannah
Balls.
Bananas are in town next weekend at Busch Stadium. I will be in attendance on Saturday at the game. So if you see me out there, be sure to say hello. Would love to talk to you guys out there. So here's the question for you. I want to watch the game. This is one of those things. You guys know how excited I am. It's like going to a show, but it's a baseball show. It's like going to watch the Harlem Globetrotters for basketball. I actually want to watch this. So the question is, do we take Luka? Because if Luka goes, you know how a 2-year-old is, man. We're going to be everywhere. The odds of us actually being able to sit down in our seat, drink an ice cold beer, and watch what is in front of us, slim to none.
Well, you can drink beer with your kid. You do it a lot, man.
I think Luka would find it to be really interesting for like 6 minutes.
Yeah.
And I think that is the extent of his interest. Am I a bad father if I just leave him with the grandparents for the night and he stays there while we go to watch the Savannah Bananas?
Absolutely not.
Okay.
That's a date night for you and your wife.
Cool.
And I don't think that is it could be, but for his age, I don't think that is a kid event. Like, you could take him, but you want to go for you, and Kara wants to go with you. To me, that's a parenting outing, and it's nope, babysitter. If he was 5, I'd say, yeah, you take him. I think he'd be fine. Even if he gets a little antsy, you run around. But a 2-year-old, no way.
Yeah, I would agree with that, because when I think Savannah Bananas, I do think fun and kind of for the young kids as well. Not 2. I think I was thinking like kindergarten, so 5, 6 years old.
All he's going to be seeing is just a bunch of people
dancing bananas.
Yeah, and he's going to be like, what is this? And, he's going to be like, all right, I'm bored. I want to do something. Like, typically, that's the mind of a 2-year-old, right? It's like 5-minute attention span.
100%.
Let's get something.
And 5 minutes might be aggressive.
Yeah. even my 4-year-old isn't even at the point, because we've got tickets for the Cardinals game on April 11th. And even my 4-year-old, I'm like, man, do I really want to go with her?
They've got the kid zone area, though.
That's the thing. And it's like, you know what? She'll enjoy it for a little bit, and I don't, I'm not like glued to the game, so if I need to walk around with her, I will. But if you're going and you want to watch, that's a recipe for disaster for Luka.
Glad we're on the same page here. We are going to take him to a Cardinals game. He's going to Pittsburgh with us here in a few weeks as well, and we're going to a Pirates game out there. So he's going to get plenty of baseball. What?
Oh, the Pirates.
You going to see Skeens?
If we're going to show him baseball, can we show him a good team?
Well, it's a good stadium, and I want to see the Clemente Bridge.
That'll
I
be
think
closed.
this time
That'll be
it's not
closed.
going to be covered with a tarp.
That'll be closed.
You're not wrong. Pittsburgh has maybe my favorite stadium in all of baseball.
Amazing.
He's not going to appreciate that until. Let's take him to a good baseball team.
Oh, we did get this from the 314. BK, you might be a bad radio guy, but I'm sure you're a terrific father and a husband.
Thanks.
I'll take the backhanded compliment.
Yeah.
It means way more to me to be a good husband and a good father than it does to be
Amen
good
to that,
at
brother.
radio. With Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. Coming up next, we got to talk about Victor Scott. A hell of a day in center field. Not so much at the plate. Not worried about that he contributed toward the winning, and that is going to be the name of the game for Victor Scott. We'll talk about it next year on 101 ESPN. Hey, it's BK for my friends over at Victory Men's Health. It is time to unlock your inner champion, and the place to do so is at Victory Men's Health. They have 4 great locations across the St. Louis area: O'Fallon, Illinois, O'Fallon, Missouri, Sunset Hills, and the location that I typically go to over in Town and Country. Unlocking your inner champion means different things for different people. For you, maybe it means going out there and finding out about their cardiovascular testing. It could be due to you feeling like you're not getting the same out of your workouts. You don't have the energy that you did in your 20s and in your 30s. That could be due to low testosterone. They'll be able to check your levels out there. Part of your first appointment, they'll go out there and find out exactly what it is that you would like. So book that first appointment today. Go online to victorymenshealth.com. It's an unbelievably easy process. Put in your name, email, phone number. Tell them BK with 101 ESPN sent you, and then tell them what it means to unlock your inner champion. Again, whether that's low testosterone testing, erectile dysfunction, weight loss goals that you're trying to meet, vitamin infusions that you're interested in, whatever it is that you're looking for, they'll be able to tell you about it over at Victory Men's Health. So check them out today. 4 great locations and online at victorymenshealth.com.
BK and Ferrario are broadcasting live from the E&B Granite Studios at the Centene Community Ice Center on 101 ESPN. E&B Granite, Bernie Fedurko's only choice for granite countertops, cabinets, and flooring.
Right center. Victor on the run. Look at him go. Still going again. Makes the grab. He saved a run and maybe more.
Alongside Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. That's what it sounded like yesterday on FanDuel Sports Midwest as Victor Scott makes a legit game-saving catch in center field for the Cardinals yesterday, and that's why they brought him. Yes, the bat is a big part of it as well. He played so well in spring training and looked so good at the plate that's ultimately what earned his opportunity on this big league roster. But the reason that it was even a conversation to begin with is because they didn't trust Lars Nootbaar's defense in center field. And let's be honest, the Cardinals have valued defense over offense over the last few seasons. Victor Scott making that catch, Alex, allowed them the opportunity to have that big moment by Nolan Arenado. Like that was such a huge play in that game, and they don't win, in my opinion, without it. Victor Scott also had an opportunity in the 6th inning. Ivan Herrera was at third. He comes up to the plate, 2 outs in that spot, hits the ball incredibly hard. I think it was over 100 miles an hour. It's a line out, but it was a good at bat. And yesterday was the start of what you hope is him finding a meaningful way every time that he takes the field to contribute towards winning. Yesterday it was his defense. You hope another day it's he takes a walk and then steals second, gets himself into scoring position, and then he scores because of it. Maybe the next day he gets a huge double. Like every day it can be something a little bit different, but with guys like Victor Scott that have his skill set, he always should be able to bring something that helps you contribute towards winning. It's similar, although different skill sets, similar to Brendan Donovan in that regard, where he can just do so many different things that help you win games. He also had a defensive play of his own at second yesterday.
Yeah, I mean, put this into a different light here. Let's say Lars Nootbaar was playing center field yesterday because they wanted to go with getting everybody the at-bats that's supposed to have the runway. He doesn't make that catch, and Minnesota's probably tying that game up, and that's a different outcome. And for Victor Scott, if you were to ask any common Cardinals fan What did Victor Scott do yesterday? They're not going to come up with the 0 for 3. They're going to go, yeah, he made that incredible catch in center field. And that is the progress and the opportunities you got to provide those young players. This isn't about you win 0 for 3 and we're going to pull you out because Michael Ciani's going to play there tomorrow, or we need the at-bats for Nolan Gorman and you win 0 for 3. No, Victor Scott's going to play Saturday in center field because he made that defensive play, and you build off of that. You know, we just talked about Dylan Holloway, and somebody referenced how he really didn't become this until Jim Montgomery. I disagree. I think he was that in the early portion of the season. He just didn't have the goals, but he was still playing the right way. Victor Scott's playing the right way. That is why you put him in the lineup, because Gold Glove defense, speed on the base paths. When he goes 0 for 3, you look at it and you say, it's all right, kid. You'll get it next time. Go back out there and keep the same confidence. And frankly, that play does wonders for him.
Yeah, 100%. And for him, like, though he can't be like a 150 hitter in your lineup like he was last year, I mean, you can get away if he's like 210, 200 batting average. Like, it is more about his defense. Your hope is that his defense will end up translating to offense. Remember, I think it was Colton Wong used to be the guy that would always make the great play defensively, and then he'd come up the next inning and he'd come up with a big moment at the plate. So if he's able to be that guy defensively that has the first step, can make those kind of plays, like you guys said, impact winning, because I'm looking at it here, it looks like it added 6% win probability.
It had to be one of the top plays of the game in that regard.
Yeah, like it's insane how much that play impacts it, because you're right. If it is Nootbaar in center, I mean, you're talking about a tie game, and now the conversation isn't, hey, wasn't that fun from the St. Louis Cardinals? Now, maybe there are questions of some of Ollie's decisions, but it goes back to what you were saying earlier, BK, when we were talking about, hey, we thought Ollie managed that game pretty well, especially since we learned after the game Fernandez was out. Then you start to flip that on its head, and the fans are going, why was it Kyle Leahy, right? Nobody's talking about that because Victor Scott makes the winning play and makes that catch.
So think about the style of play that we saw yesterday. Cardinals finished the game with, 5 strikeouts overall? 5 overall, yeah. 5 strikeouts. 2 of those were from Wilson Contreras, who never strikes out. So just an uncharacteristic game from him. I said that he was going to hit a home run, which...
We know what happened.
That's on me.
2 for 3 is typically a good game, but that one, ruined the guy's probably career.
So they have 5 strikeouts over the course of the day. They're not swinging and missing. They're making a ton of contact. A lot of it was hard contact. They're playing great defense. The old line of they played a hard 9, that was the Cardinals yesterday. They personified that. Nolan Gorman was on the bench. The reason why I bring this up is because everything that the Cardinals were yesterday, Nolan Gorman is not. Nolan Gorman strikes out.
Well, that's harsh.
He doesn't play the same level of defense. I mean, it's true, though. And I say this as somebody that values what Nolan Gorman brings to the table, which is that pure left-handed thump to the lineup. Mm-hmm. But what comes with that is, at times, unwatchable at-bats, where he goes up there and it's strike, 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 see you later. And it's strike swinging on strike 3 a lot of the time, where he has no chance when he comes up to the plate. I don't know that there was a single at-bat yesterday where I thought to myself, this guy has no chance. Just looks laughable as he's walking up to the plate. Most of them were at least competitive. So I bring this up to ask the question, which I think is a fair one right now. What is Nolan Gorman's role on this team? Because I'm not using him necessarily as a pinch hitter. Like, who am I pinch hitting for in this lineup? Who's the guy? Out of your everyday lineup, I'm not sure there is one.
I mean, if you're pinch hitting, it's probably Victor Scott.
Yeah, but maybe. If it's
but Victor Scott was better than Nolan Gorman in spring training, and Nolan Gorman was sent to AAA last year. Like, I
just mean it's the power. So if you've got 2 on and Victor Scott's coming up and it's a 1-run game, you're probably putting Nolan Gorman in that spot, and then you're putting in Michael Ciani. But this goes to the question of the development. Wouldn't you prefer Victor Scott to be getting in that scenario with runners in scoring position?
Victor Scott out right now offensively. Like, maybe that's the case in 2 weeks. Maybe 3 weeks from now we talk about it and we're like, yeah, Victor Scott's just not hitting. It was a spring training thing. It was a fluke, whatever. But right now I'm not replacing Victor Scott with Nolan Gorman. Not happening. Maybe you do it with Jordan Walker if there's a righty in the game, late in a game. I think
big
that's
slider guy. But, like, if it's a heavy throwing fastball guy, like high 90s. I mean, that's not what you want Gorman facing, right?
Yeah, like, this is all under the precedent, too, that Gorman's hitting.
I think,
and he's worse defensively than the dudes that you have in the lineup right now. Like, there's no case for him there. What is his role?
I think his role is, I'm going to see if there's even a way to frame this well, is the defensive alignment we threw out there, we blew the lead, so now we got it. The spot's coming back up. We need another pinch hitter. And what I mean by that is it's entirely possible, like they did yesterday. So their defensive alignment was, hey, Pages goes in the ninth inning for Herrera, Ciani's going in for Walker playing center, and Scott shifts over to right. Okay, so say Helsley blows the save, or maybe Helsley's unavailable that day and Fernandez or Maton blows the save. And then those spots come back up in the order because it's possible, and they may pull them earlier depending on where they're at in the game. And then you have a Ciani and a Pages coming up. Now you're looking at the spot for Gorman. But, like, when I say that, like, that's probably not happened all that often. And that's where, like, to your point, like, what's his role? That's his role, but that's just a distressed asset is essentially what that is because – you're right. He doesn't fit what they were doing yesterday. Not great plate appearance. He's athletic, but he's not as athletic as all those other guys.
He's more athletic than you probably think. I would put him into that, like, Ivan Herrera role where it's like, hey, you probably look at him and think to yourself, this guy's not a great athlete.
Sure,
and then you look at the back of the baseball card and it's like, oh, he's averaging 10 stolen bases per year.
Herrera's like 8th on the starting 9 of where he would rank athletically. So, yeah, I mean, right now his role to me is, hey, we blew the game. Here come our defensive bats. Now it's time for Nolan Gorman.
Somebody on the text line from the 314 says, guys, having too many players is better than not having enough. Long season, there will be injuries to come. Totally. And that eventually this will work itself out. But really what I'm getting to here, and again, I want to say this on the front end, just like the Victor Scott thing, I said I wouldn't have taken him because I want to get the young guys at bats, Gorman being one of them. The preface here is Gorman would have been one of those guys that I was trying to get at bats for. But now that you've made this decision, you've made your bed, this is what you're going with here, I now, given that information, would say, I don't know if Gorman starts in the first week of the season. And that's kind of crazy, but you have an off day next Thursday, and then you have another off day the following Thursday. This is a team that has off days early on in the schedule. It's why they're not going with the 6-man rotation now, and they're waiting to do so until that 13 games and 13-day stretch. At that point, you probably see some playing time for Nolan Gorman because you need to get guys a day off. He'll go in there for Nolan Arenado. He'll go in there for Brendan Donovan one day. Like, you'll find ways to get him in there. But these first 10 days or so of the season, if I set the over-under like 2.5 starts for Nolan Gorman, are you taking the over or under?
You want to tell him or you want me to tell him?
Oh, I would say under, but I was going to tell him.
It's going to be this weekend that you see him?
He's going to get one start this weekend.
I think he starts either tomorrow or Sunday.
And
I think he gets another start before what you're talking. I think he gets at least 2 starts.
And Arenado's getting a day off. He's not playing 6 straight. Just not happening. I mean, he's going to get off probably that last game against the Angels, the day game. So there's
why not start 6 straight? I'm honestly asking why not.
He's truly old. I think the best version for Arenado, I mean, he's increased his bat speed.
So you give him the 2 straight days off, Wednesday going into Thursday?
That's the only reason I do it. If Arenado was like 28, he'd be playing 6 straight, or maybe one day's a DH.
Sure.
My guess is like Arenado will DH probably Sunday. Gorman will start at 3rd. And my guess is he'll be off that final game against the Angels, and Gorman will start at 3rd. Now,
they shouldn't do that on Sunday.
2.5 is where I would say.
You can say that already, buddy.
I would go under on the 2.5 because I think it's 2.
I think it's
spot.
2.
Yeah, I think 2 is the perfect spot, and I just want Arenado to get more of the off/rest days because, though yes, the bat speed is there, and if the bat speed is there, then that means we're potentially going to see a bounce back from Nolan Arenado. I've also seen this guy is starting to deal with more small lingering things as his time in St. Louis has gone on. Like we've talked about his arm being a problem before. We've talked about the back tightening up on him. Like it's better for him to, I understand it's the first 3 games of the season. It's okay to start banking in some of those kind of days out of the field from Arenado right now in week number 1.
And maybe it's not a start. Maybe you just see him come in later in the game and he gets 2 at-bats or midway through the game.
If you're not putting him in at the
I think
start,
he starts or it's just pointless, if I'm being honest.
I'm with you, but they're going to find a way to get him multiple at-bats, whether he's starting or he's coming into the game. Jose Fermin got a start last year got a 2 at-bats at an opening day last year.
I think that was a mistake. Like I think some of what they did.
I had to look it up.
That's crazy. I think some of what they did last year, you should now view as a mistake. Now, one of the things that informed their decisions, especially at shortstop, we now know Brandon Crawford was getting those starts, not because they wanted to get Brandon Crawford in those games. That was what they told you, but it wasn't the truth. They wanted to make sure that Mason Wynn was healthy.
and he was dealing with that back issue, and they saw, hey, if we can buy him a day going into the off day, that's the best way for us to manage this back issue where he could have 2 straight days to get this thing right, and then he'll be better off a month into the season because we did this. That was their calculus, at least, on it. It seems like it ended up working because he played like 150 games last year, but early on, that's why they did that. I don't know how they're going to approach this. I'm really curious this weekend to see what it looks like when they go up against, I believe it's 2 right-handed pitchers that you're going to see. But you just went up against Pablo Lopez and had a specific lineup. I would imagine the same thing is going to be true on Saturday and Sunday. I personally wouldn't switch it up. All right, coming up next.
BK's getting pretty mad.
Hey, they want to know what this line.
Yeah, we're undefeated, man.
It's not that I'm mad.
No, you're pretty mad.
You're pretty mad.
You're pretty mad.
I want them to make a decision and then stick with it. Like, if you think this is the right call, if you think this is the right direction to go in, dude, go with it. That's cool. I can live with it, even if I disagreed with it to begin with, as long as you then hitch your wagon to it. Let's see what this looks like. Give it some runway, to use their own word. And if they decide to pull the plug on that 2 games into the season and go with something different, I just find that to be a strange way to go about it. I would be curious their explanation on it.
I know we got to get to a break, so I'm going to ask this quickly. Is it pulling the plug if Arenado just DHs and Gorman gets a start? Like, what I would consider this is
what are you doing with Burleson?
Well, then I guess Burley's getting a day off would be my answer to that. Like, I just.
But why?
I don't feel the.
No, I'm genuinely asking, like, what? Why?
Well, because they got to get at bats for Gorman. Like, I just.
You don't need to. You chose Victor Scott over Nolan Gorman. That's what you chose.
You're getting
so
angry,
stick with
man.
it.
Yeah, you are
You're getting angry, man.
Yeah, quit lying that you're not pre-mad, okay?
God, you're the Tone Ranger.
Hey, man, all offseason they said it was about getting at bats for Nolan Gorman, and then on
We're
opening
working
day,
on it.
they chose to do the opposite.
They're trying.
Yeah.
So that's cool. That's your choice. Go ahead and stick with
Ollie,
it.
will you put Gorman in the lineup on Saturday and Sunday just to take it to this guy?
Stick it to the man.
Speaking of
I know you're listening, Ollie.
Speaking of having too many guys for too few spots, how do the Blues handle this with Jimmy Snuggerud potentially arise? We'll talk about that next year on 101 ESPN.
Live from the Centene Community Ice Center inside the E&B Granite Studios. This is BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN. E&B Granite, Bernie Fedurko's only choice for granite countertops, cabinets, and flooring.
Alongside Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. It's BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. So the Blues have a really good situation right now. They've got a good thing going, Alex. They don't lose hockey games, which is a positive.
It's very good.
And even when they get punched in the mouth like they did last night, they find a way to respond. They've done that with mostly the same lineup. And now they've got a potential wrench thrown into things. One, you've got Dalibor, Dvorsky, who I would imagine eventually they're going to want to get into a game if he's going to be around the team. We'll see. Maybe they just decide, you know, we're sending you back down to the AHL. That's possible as well. The other is, well, Jimmy Snuggerud lost last night, boys. Jimmy Snuggerud.
Or, yes, Jimmy Snuggerud lost last night, boys.
Depends on your perspective.
You saw a silent, fist bump from Ari in the press box last night.
High five is, yes, good job, guys.
So for those that aren't familiar, Jimmy Snuggerud was playing in the hockey tournament that is their version of the NCAA tournament. And they were hoping to get to the Frozen Four, which is hosted here in St. Louis this year. And the hope was he comes here for the Frozen Four, wins it all, and then signs with the St. Louis Blues right afterwards to be a part of their playoff push. Well, it happened earlier than expected. They lost last night against UMass. So now he has a decision to make. Do I sign with the Blues? Do I go back to college? What do I do? It seems like all signs are pointing towards him signing with the Blues eventually, sooner rather than later. I don't think he's going to be a part of this for tomorrow against Colorado. It seems extremely quick. That's way too quick of a turnaround. But starting next week, some point in the homestand, feels very possible that Jimmy Snuggerud is a part of this. Alex, if he signs, that's the first if. And if the Blues decide to get him immediately into the lineup, what does that look like for them as they're going through this playoff push down the stretch?
So there's two different paths with this. One, you go with is Pavel Buchnevich healthy? And if Pavel Buchnevich, which again, the reports yesterday where he was joining the team in Nashville, he was going to travel with them to Colorado. If that's the case, that tells me he's available to play tomorrow, which means he's probably going to be in the lineup. So, down that path, I don't expect Snuggerud to play, but Buchnevich is back. Texier is the one that comes out of the lineup. And they go back to what they typically have. Buch goes to the top line. Bolduc drops down with Joseph and Sundqvist. Bada boom, you got your same lines. But if Snuggerud is there and you get to the Detroit game, I think the spot that you enter is one of two. It's either Matthew Joseph or it's Oscar Sundqvist. The Sundqvist one is basically going to come down to, is Sonny need a day off? Because they love using him, but they got to make sure he's fresh for the playoffs. And that's where I think I go to Matthew Joseph. And I know everyone's like, they're winning. You can't mess the lineup up. You're right. And JR made a good point on the podcast talking about what does that look like to a group of guys that have rallied together to put this streak, and you pull them out for a college guy who makes a couple of mistakes in the game. Doesn't look great. But they also sat Matthew Joseph for the final 7 minutes and 19 seconds of the game last night, as well as Alex Texier, which tells me Joseph is a good player for this team, but they're not sold on him being in the dire situations.
And if we're being honest, they haven't played well in 3 of their last 4 games. Now, doesn't matter. You've won. You've won every game. You've done so in regulation. You're getting the points that you need. But in 3 of your last 4 games, for large stretches of them, you have not played great hockey.
And this also comes down to making sure that you can give guys some rest so that they're ready to go. And if you do get to the point where you continue to extend that gap, then you can play a Snuggerud for a game and not worry if for some reason he makes a mistake and falls back. But to me personally, I look at this and I say, I think you slot him in on a top line with Robert Thomas and Pavel Buchnevich. And as the game progresses, if it's close and you can't use him in certain situations, then you know what you do? You flip the line combinations like you've been doing all season. Snuggerud dips down and a Bolduc goes up or a Neighbors goes up and you put him on a third line. But I think as this plays out, Thomas and Buch have made great chemistry, and it doesn't matter if it's Neighbors up there, if it's Bolduc up there. Thomas and Buch are a pair. Holloway and Kyrou are a pair. And to me, Sundqvist is just a guy that could play with whomever's on the line. I think they would sell you Sundqvist and Bolduc as a pair. So if you're going to go off of that purpose, then Neighbors can dip down and Snuggerud jumps in. And now you still have the combos, and it's what Mike McKenna said. You've got players that will protect him. He's not a centerman that's going to be playing against the best team. He's a winger. Wingers have one responsibility when they're on the ice, and it's a position on the ice. You focus on that. So there's less mistakes to make than versus a Dvorsky in the lineup who's taking the center role.
So your lines, just to make sure I've got this right, Snuggie, Thomas, and Buchnevich. Holloway, Shin, Kyrou, same thing that it's been all year. And then Neighbors, Sonny, and Bolduc.
Yes.
And then WTF line as your fourth line. I would just, for me, I would probably end up flipping Snuggerud and Bolduc.
Which you can absolutely do also.
Because Snuggie traditionally is a right winger, right? Now, this does not mean he can't play on the left wing. We've seen this a million different times with seemingly every player on the lineup. They can play on their offhand, but traditionally he's played on the right side, correct?
Yeah.
So I would just have him.
He's a right winger.
I would try to make this as seamless of a transition as possible. And I know Mike McKenna, who certainly knows more about or has forgotten more about hockey than I will ever know, said the same thing that you are right now, Alex, which is he's in the top 6 and you find a spot for him and you make it work.
Yep.
I get that. For me, as somebody that knows nothing about hockey, I would say this allows me to limit his playing time, his time on the ice, the way that they did last night with Joseph.
Yep.
Is if you play him on the third line, you can then potentially double shift somebody if you wanted to in his spot, or you just you make sure that he's only going out there in offensive zone starts. You've got Sonny and Neighbors out there with him who both take some of that defensive responsibility away for him. You're not getting as many of those top line minutes going up against the opposition's top line. So I would probably do that. I would just swap Bolduc, who I think has been playing great and has looked really good on that top line lately. I would swap him with Jimmy Snuggerud for mine.
And look, it's not, in my opinion, it's not about the 5-on-5 play with Snuggerud. Obviously, he's going to have an impact there. It's the power play. Like I wrote down what these power play combinations are. This is your first unit. Neighbors, Kyrou, Thomas, or Neighbors, Kyrou, Shen, Holloway, Falk. It's been their number one unit. This second unit is a Sundqvist is your net front presence, or really, I guess it's Pavel Buchnevich when he's healthy. Snuggerud, Thomas, Bolduc, Fowler.
That feels better.
Like, you have this is why he's playing over a Matthew Joseph. And look, I'm not trying to take anything away. Matthew Joseph has been really good for this penalty kill, and it's a tough piece to take out of the lineup. But Snuggerud's playing because of his shot. And guess what? If it doesn't look good and the chemistry's off and it feels like you got to get back, then Snuggerud goes to the press box. He's not promised anything. Like Mike said, sometimes there's handshake deals if you get a couple of games. He's got to play a game. I could promise you he's going to play at least a game before the end of the season if he signs.
He's playing.
Yes.
Yeah.
Is he going to play every single game? I don't know. I don't know what he's going to look like. To me, and talking with guys who have played college hockey, it's an easier fit to go from college to the NHL than from juniors to the NHL or AHL to the NHL, because both are very meticulous in how they play in terms of you expect reinforcements and things like that. So I think to me it's an easy spot where you plug him in. It's one, injury and health purposes, and two, it's what does he look like?
The other thing that I would add to this is I've got two things here that I want to say. One, and this is going to sound weird.
I like weird.
A lot of this is made easier if they lose tomorrow. And the reason why I say that, and I'm talking about the roster decisions, the lineup decisions going into that game against Detroit or Pittsburgh, depending on if and when Snuggerud is available. Right now, you're riding this winning streak, and so it becomes a little difficult to say, yeah, you guys have won 7, 8, 9 games in a row, but we're going to insert this new guy into the lineup for game 10, 11, 12, right? That is something that typically you don't want to disrupt a potential a lineup that has been out there having as much success as they have. The other, and this is coming from Jeremy Rutherford, the Blues stayed in Nashville, practiced today. Afterward, Jim Montgomery told Matthew DeFranks that Pavel Buchnevich feels really good and will be in the lineup on Saturday against Colorado. So that's another thing. Buch back into the lineup. That is huge for them tomorrow, and it also potentially takes a spot away that otherwise would have potentially been out there.
I wonder if when Snuggerud signs, Dvorsky goes down. And maybe they keep him up here. I mean, they've already burned one of those 4 call-ups that they have. I guess it's 2 now because Kessel was one and then Dvorsky was the other. Maybe you keep him up here for a couple more so he can continue to practice with the team. And frankly, right now you give him a taste of the NHL. But there's a chance that he goes down. And when Snuggerud's there, Snuggerud's that extra forward, and then you decide what to do. And then I was just going to bring this one up, BK, because Matthew Nyes, which is the one that I always kind of credited towards when he played for Toronto, 13 minutes and 9 seconds in his first game, 12 minutes and 13:58.
So that's third line.
It's a second, third line player.
Yeah.
And that's what I think they're going to do. And he played, remember, with Matthews and Nylander in those games, but as the games went on, they juggled the lines around, and Nyes would step back. He would skip a shift. They would double shift other guys. They would put him in a third-line role as it went
I just think
forward.
on the top line, that's harder to do. As a third-line player, that is a lot easier to be able to accomplish. Yeah. Alongside Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. It's BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. Coming up next, the Cardinals, no matter the results, cannot get away from the style that we saw them play yesterday. We'll tell you about it next year on 101 ESPN.
.101 ESPN Sports Center.
I'm Jordan Deacon. The Sports Center update is driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. It is a very busy time in St. Louis sports, so I'm going to take you through the 101 ESPN schedule for this weekend. Starting off with right after the Fast Lane, we will have Sweet 16 pregame coverage at 6 o'clock, and then the Battlehawks are also in action tonight, taking on the Houston Roughnecks at 7 o'clock. Taking us into Saturday, the Cardinals are taking on the Twins with first pitch at 1:15. The Blues are in Colorado. Alex will have your pregame at 2:30, and puck drop will be at 3:30. And then right after that Blues game, we will have Elite 8 coverage for you right here on 101 ESPN. That pregame coverage starts at 7:45. 5. Rounding us out on Sunday, Elite 8 coverage will continue with pregame at 1 o'clock, and then City SC is also taking on Austin FC with kickoff at 1:15. I'm Jordan Deacon. The Sports Center update was driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. See them at londoff.com. Chevy, together we drive. Are you kidding me?
This is BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN. We're broadcasting live from the E&B Granite Studios at the Centene Community Ice Center. E&B Granite, Bernie Fedorko's only choice for granite countertops, cabinets, and flooring.
T1 on BK. It's BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. The Cardinals yesterday got a big win. It looked great. The style of play was everything you could have hoped for and then some. I think earlier today BT described it as hustle and hungry. Hustle and hungry. That's their motto for the upcoming season.
It's totally a T-shirt.
It was fun to watch. Just like an aggressive style, and it worked on opening day. There will be days where it doesn't work, though. And I loved this quote. This is from Ollie Marmol after the game yesterday, talking about the aggressive nature that they played with and why they cannot get away with that, even when it potentially leads to some ugly moments.
Yeah, and we're going to learn from moments that don't go our way, right? Like today, it went our way. There are situations where early leaves at first based on something that we have on a pitcher, and it led to a balk and a ball thrown away. It easily could have been 2 outs at second. And are you going to shy away because it didn't work, or are we going to keep the pedal down knowing that, hey, we're going to stay aggressive and we're going to be smart, but we're going to stay aggressive. So work to our advantage today, and we're going to continue to build on those type of moments.
I'm so glad he said that, because this is the process thing that I talk about, right? I liked that they were aggressive. The results didn't matter to me. They were aggressive with the way that they played. You're trying to make the other team, you're forcing them into mistakes. This is why I always say, like, strikeouts I do think matter. And the people that are always saying, like, oh, you guys say that strikeouts don't matter, blah. No, they do. And the reason why is because there's a lot of bad defenders out there in Major League Baseball. And the only way that you can make them work is by putting the ball into play. Mm-hmm. Now, there's contact that's better than others, and we can have a conversation about the value of those home runs and if they offset that lack of value from the strikeouts. But one of the things that the Cardinals have had as an issue in recent season is they don't put any pressure on you on the base paths. They don't put the ball in play enough with hard contact. And when you're doing neither of those two things, you're not forcing the other team to work. The other thing is, a lot of the time, they weren't actually forcing the pitchers to work. We'd be quick at bats for half of the lineup. You'd have some that take a bunch of pitches, Newt, Donovan, and others that are like hacking at everything. So it's quick 1-2 pitch out, boom, early, not having to work on anything. So yesterday, what I liked about their game, they made the Twins work. They made it hard for them. That is something that the Dodgers, yes, they've got all the talent in the world. You know what they do? They run like hell, and they are a nightmare for your pitching staff because they foul off pitches like crazy.
Or they're patient, they don't swing like we saw in the playoffs, and they wait for you to pitch in the strike zone.
Totally, and then they do damage when you come in and try to do that. So I bring all of that up because it was a great game in all of these areas. There will also be games where they try to get aggressive on the base paths and they get thrown out at second. If you want what you saw yesterday, it probably comes with what we will see eventually, where they get thrown out, and it's frustrating as hell to watch. But keep in the back of your mind, both of those things, they're two sides of the same coin. That aggressive nature, it can help you win games. It's probably going to lead to you losing some games. But I would prefer seeing this style than what we've seen at times in the past.
But you have to implement a style if you want that to be your identity, right?
Totally.
Like you have to do it consistently and deal with the lumps that come with it if you want it to become who you are moving forward. And that's why I enjoyed what I saw yesterday. Did it result in a couple of plays that, don't look good? Absolutely. And if you lose that game, you're probably talking about those more.
Well, yesterday it worked. Yesterday, those plays, it forced him into an error and a balk.
Yeah. but what I mean is being picked off. People view the pick off, and then they're like, well, what are you doing? But big picture, you're right. It's going to make them look bad a couple of times, or a few times, or maybe a lot of times. But moving forward, those guys have that ingrained in their brain that says this is how Cardinals baseball is played. And if that's the case, that's where you become dangerous. The Dodgers just didn't all of a sudden become a team that was patient and make you wait, or waited for the pitching staff to throw it down the middle and made you pay. You had to get the right personnel, but you just had to implement that style. And when you got it, then good luck trying to get away from it.
And I think if you're going to, like, I love this quote from Ollie. And, we were just talking 2 segments ago. BK was getting pretty mad about the notion.
I remember that. Yeah.
Nolan Gorman potentially being in the starting lineup and them doing the whole, like, hey, we're going to have to pull a guy out just to get at-bats for Gorman. Well, if the Cardinals are going to stick with an identity and they want to keep pushing this identity, and Ollie is going to speak publicly and say, hey, sometimes this isn't going to work, but that's okay. You know what that also means? That means Ollie's probably going to have to stick with the same lineup. And kind of, if you're going to push this idea of this is what we want our identity to be and we love your aggressiveness, even if it doesn't pay off, that also means Ollie's basically telling the guys, hey, you're not getting pulled out of the lineup because you're over-aggressive.
Yeah,
and I think
totally.
that's the part that's important in this conversation is we mention Matheny all the time with Colton Wong, right?
Yeah.
Wong would go for 3. Wong could also get himself in trouble on the base paths. And that was when you would see Matheny really go, nope, sorry, young kid's still learning on the bench. He's going to sit 2 games, and we're going to go with, like, Mark Ellis as our second baseman.
Hey, Mark Ellis was good.
Blast from the past. But I that's what I like about this quote from Ollie. Now, we'll see if he backs it up. Because it's one thing for Ollie to say this, and then we see the first mistake, and then that guy's out of the lineup.
When you
and
lose a game.
Gorman's in the lineup. I don't think he's going to do it. But I'll be curious to see if he can stick with kind of his guns here and stick with, hey, we're preaching this aggressiveness and we're going to stick to it.
Yeah, I love it. It's a style of baseball that I prefer to watch.
If they ever get picked off a second, I'm going to lose my ish, though, because that should never happen.
Calm down.
In football, I remember it's probably 5 years ago now. Mizzou was playing this new defense, this new scheme defensively, and what it required of the defensive linemen is they called it the read and react. Read and anyways.
You don't sound very happy about it, buddy.
It was infuriating. They didn't get after the passer at all. They would wait to see how the play is developing, and then it was this slow mush rush. It was horrible to watch as a fan, but it did have some characteristics that ended up working out well. Like it helped you against the run a bit. It didn't get people out of their rush lanes. Man, you know what I prefer? Just scream up the field and get after the quarterback, man.
Yeah.
Let's go. Play the run on the way to the quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
And that's again, my preferred style of play, and I prefer this. Take the game to the opposition. Don't let them take it to you. And it makes them get after it a little bit.
I could tell you're really passionate about this.
Gets me excited.
Did you enjoy the FCC meeting that we had on
It gets
Monday?
me really excited. He's Alex's T-Bone. I'm BK. Love talking about
It's not just me.
Here on 101 ESPN. You guys can always check us out on YouTube as well at youtube.com/101 ESPN STL. Coming up next, we'll put a bow on this thing here on BK and Ferrario.
Live from the Centene Community Ice Center inside the E&B Granite Studios, this is BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN. E&B Granite, Bernie Federko's only choice for granite countertops, cabinets, and flooring. Let's run it back with the Daily Rewind on BK and Ferrario. Brought to you by Gloria Loom, your home sold guaranteed realty. Selling your home begins at GloriaHasTheBuyers.com.
I'm BK. Jordan Deacon did a fantastic job for us back in the studio today. We've been on assignment a lot the last couple of weeks, Alex.
Probably why you're so angry.
Maybe. The funny thing, I was not angry.
You were very angry.
Animated. I'm going to say it because we're only got 3 minutes here. Nothing went wrong today, okay? Nothing went wrong.
Sorry, Jordan, you can handle the final 3 minutes.
All right, a lot to get into, only 3 minutes to do so.
Oh, no.
You can check us out on YouTube, as always, at youtube.com/101ESPN STL. T-Bone Cards opening day yesterday went well for them over the weekend. What are you looking for from the Redbirds?
I'm going to be curious to see if they can continue to have success with this style of play. Look, it was a fun brand of baseball, and I like the way that BT kind of said it, right? There is hitting for power, and then there's also manufacturing power, and they're going to have to find a balance in that. I don't think they can just win playing small ball. I think they're going to have to win like they did yesterday. I'll be curious to see how that sustains. I'll be curious to see what Fetty looks like now. He's got a full year here with St. Louis.
Alex, Blues back in action tomorrow against the Colorado Avalanche. It is a matinee game, 3:30 face-off for that
Home
one.
for dinner.
Sounds like we'll have Pavel Buchnevich back in the lineup for that one. But the Blues question that I wanted to ask you is about Jimmy Snuggerud. What do you think the future lies for him in the immediate future over the next week or so with the Blues?
I think you're going to see some type of announcement later on today or tomorrow that he's signed a contract with the Blues and that his career with Minnesota is done. It just felt like after last night, that's where we're at now. And the question will be, when does he play? I don't expect him to play tomorrow. Frankly, I don't even know if he gets with the team tomorrow. Tuesday will be an interesting conversation because if they lose versus Colorado, maybe you see some changes to the lineup. I think Snuggerud and Dvorsky are tied together right now. Does Dvorsky go down when Snuggerud signs, or do they keep them both here since they're the future moving forward? I don't expect Snuggerud or Dvorsky tomorrow. I do expect Booch tomorrow, and then the rest will be let's find out what happens on Tuesday.
We do have the NCAA tournament continuing tonight. Ole Miss versus Michigan State, Kentucky, Tennessee, Michigan versus Auburn, and Purdue versus Houston. Those are the matchups for this evening. The Elite Eight is already set for tomorrow. Texas Tech versus Florida and Alabama versus Duke. 2-1, 3-1. Those are the two matchups. We got a lot wrong with this year's NCAA tournament. One thing we were 100% correct about, dude, it's chalk. And that's going to lead to some unbelievable matchups over this upcoming weekend in the Elite Eight. Tonight, I've got Michigan State, I've got Tennessee, Auburn, and Houston. The four favorites, I believe, will end up moving on to the Elite Eight. Battlehawks in action tonight. City SC in action this weekend as well. You can't ask for much more when it comes to this time of the year for St. Louis sports. For Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. Again, Jordan Deacon, fantastic job back in the studio for us today. If you guys missed anything from today's show, we got into a lot, including an interview with Brad Thompson. Mike McKenna joined us in studio. You can check it out after the show today at 101ESPN.com and the free 101 ESPN app. That is always sponsored by
Schaefer Door Company.
That 101 ESPN app is free to download. It is super easy to use, and it is sponsored by Dobbs Tire and Auto Centers. I will be at Genesis of St. Charles tomorrow from 1 to 3 o'clock, so I will see you guys out there. If you can't get out there, though, we'll talk to you guys again on Monday at 11 a.m. with plenty to get into here on 101 ESPN.